There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
I'm a facilitator. We got a grant from the Ford Family Foundation to do a feasibility study and renditions, and that's what you're looking at here with this display. We actually have two buildings. We have the community building that we're in now. This is the American Legion Hall next door, and this is the floor plan for the whole complex. And it is our biggest meeting space. The American Legion Hall has a kitchen that needs to be refurbished, and so far in about 90 days we've generated about $73,000 from our local community. This project has a budget of about $1.5 million. We're hoping to start construction in 3 years.
It's a rehabilitation of existing buildings, and it's important to take care of what we have.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
Welcome to Oregon's capital, your Oregon capital. The Capitol is home to the Oregon State Legislature, the Governor, Secretary of State, and the State Treasurer. This is Oregon's third state capital, the previous two having been destroyed by fires in 1855 and 1935. The current building was designed in 1938 by Francis Keeley, a New York architect. The wings were completed and dedicated in 1977.
I'm very pleased to join with all of you this afternoon for the dedication of the new Capitol wings. I welcome all of our many friends and distinguished guests who are able to be with us to share in this proud day.
The Senate wing is named after Jason Bowe, who was the Senate president.
think?
Good morning.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
It is December 2nd at 9 a.m. If you would please rise with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I've not seen him.
He is here.
All right, good morning. Oh boy, can we mute that? Eric's coming.
Is he on a boat or something?
I'm gonna mute the TV is what it is.
No extra charge, Randy Henry.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. He can hear me. All right, Commissioner, do you have a line of duty report?
Quickly, Mr. Chair, just want to read something that I just got in an email yesterday. Since the riot started in early July, there have been, in the USA, almost 2,700 police officers injured. One of the toughest jobs in the country is also one of the most thankless. They fiercely protect those who often dislike them intensely. Highly trained professionals facing escalating dangers and immense pressures more and more every day. So I will have a full report on our 16th meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair. A moment of silence, if I may, please, if we can. Thanks again.
All right. Do we have any amendments to the agenda? Commissioner?
I have one. I just got informed very, very recently that the letter to Governor Brown was never sent regarding COVID. And I'd like to thank Dave Barnes for letting us know. And I took it upon myself to write a letter to Governor Brown regarding the COVID issues. And I'd like to put that on the agenda and give a copy of that. And I hated to do this because I'm usually doing things in a timely manner, but I thought it was expedient that we get this out.
Okay, so as an action item?
Yes, please.
How about H?
H.
7H?
7H, that would be good. Thank you.
So,
Anything
Mr. Chair,
else?
Will that be for reading?
Yes, I'll read it and I'll give everybody a copy.
Thank you. I have several, Mr. Chair. Were you next?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm going to have a 1-minute statement immediately after presentations, and I'm also going to have a 1-minute statement as soon as we go into executive session. Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull 5B. It's going to take a little more than 10 minutes. I'd like to table that until perhaps the 16th. I think it's
okay.
And we just have a busy day today, so I think that might be a good approach. And then I have a couple questions for the board on consent agenda, if I may. That would be 6F. All I'm asking for there, just in case people don't know, refer to Terry Hanscom as Treasurer-elect of Curry County.
Okay.
And then item 6H, I want to pull that just for a couple questions. So we might want to put that as 7J. Is that the right letter?
Yes, sir. I, H-I, yeah.
Didn't we just add an I?
No, we added H.
Excuse me.
So we're going to move 6H to 7I.
Oh, and I have one more, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Item 7B, Ms. Plague and I were unaware but we think that problem is solved with Microsoft Teams, increased capacity for video conferencing.
So you're going to remove that?
I think that problem is solved.
Okay.
We're really gaining some extra time on the clock, huh?
Anything further?
That's all I have.
Ms. Schmelzer.
We did not get the background check on for the new hire, so we would need to pull 10A and 11A, or basically 10 and 11.
So we're pulling the exec session as well, okay?
Yep, and the hire order.
All right. Goody goody. Council?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So just have a question, I think, for the director on 7A, the CARES Act relief discussion. From what I understand, we've worked on a contract with CCD to contract out the county's functions under we actually have two agreements. One to consider, one an IGA with the state, and then an agreement with CCD. So those should both be added as action items if that's what's going to happen. That's where I'm just trying to figure out what are we going to do there.
The Economic Development Coordinator will explain where we're at on that and what we need to do on that. We may have to bring that up under other on number 12.
Okay, but from what I understand, we've got a IGA from the state that's been proposed to us, and then we've developed a agreement with CCD to perform functions under that. So, and those have to be done fairly soon, and today might be the only time we have to do it.
Yeah, she'll go through that.
Okay.
It'll get done today.
Well, but those two agreements aren't on the agenda, so I think we should just add discussion of them at least as items.
Well, I believe they're going to be discussed under Ms. Madison's presentation is what it'll be.
Right. They're just not listed. Okay, we can add them as other. I just wanted to one way or the other. Thanks.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you again. No, I agree. Those need to be action items today, if at all possible. Are we on the same page?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If they are not handled properly, we'll make sure they are handled before we leave.
Thank you.
Anything further? Have a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second, Mr. Chair, excuse me.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Aye.
Sheriff Nash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Next, we're going to move on to public comments. Ms. Velisis, good morning. I still say your husband's a lucky guy.
Thank you. Good morning to see and good to see you all. I just want to begin by thanking you all for your public service, continuing staff and board at this time of coronavirus. We really appreciate it. But I am here this morning to bring up to you the Flores Lake land swap, of course. I'd like to know what is the plan and schedule to get this project completed. I think you know, the agreement between the county and state parks was signed last October 2nd, 2019, with a closing date of the end of this year, December 30th, 2020. So we've had well over a year, and I know that staff has been working on the steps, but we now have less than 30 days to get it done. Of course, we all know the coronavirus has overtaxed everyone on many levels with many other responsibilities for county staff. But we still need a plan to get this done. So I'm particularly concerned because Ms. Schmelzer will be leaving at the end of the year, and we know she knows a lot of the details, so I really don't want to see this fall through the cracks. If we're not going to get it done by the end of the year, I think there will need to be some other plan, an extension of some sort, but even if we do an extension, we still need a plan and a schedule to get it done. So I think you all remember the tremendous public support that there is for this project. And I would really prefer to be here thanking you and thanking staff for helping to get this amazing project done, because I think it's positive on so many levels. So anyway, I just hope that you can direct staff to get this done in a timely manner, and if not, help us all to understand what the plan and schedule is going to be to get it done. Thank you very much. And perhaps I hope you might be able to give me some feedback as to when this might be discussed, so I know whether I should stay for this meeting or go home and watch it on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schmelzer, do you have an update possibly on this, or?
I do. So, Ms. Velisis and I communicated a couple weeks ago, and then I had communication from another citizen out there. We're still on target to have everything completed by the end of the year. We ran into a little hiccup on something, but we're working through that. Council, I'm not sure if he did reach out to ask about an extension or not, but right now we are still trying to get it done by the end of the year. It's in the hands of the planning department right now. They're actually waiting on some information from the county surveyor.
Okay.
Yep, and in an abundance of caution, I made an overture to the state people and asked them if we couldn't get it done, if they'd be willing to extend for 90 days to March 31st. But I agree with Director Schmelzer. We're very close to having it's basically a partition action done, and whether if it doesn't get done, I haven't heard back from the state, but I have no reason to believe they will not grant us this extension. They're as motivated to make this deal happen as we are, if not more.
Okay.
But we're vigorously shooting for December 16th, 2 weeks from today, correct?
31st. I mean,
but that'll be our last meeting to approve it.
I don't believe it has to go back to the board, does it, John? I mean,
no, the partition does not need to be approved by the board.
I mean, so what happened was we did this contract saying this stuff had to be done. So as long as we make that deadline, we're good. It doesn't have to go back to the board for another approval on that contract.
The board's approved it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just executing is all that's happening now.
Once that's recorded, then we're done, right?
Once the deeds are recorded, it should be done.
Gordon Clay? Good morning, sir.
For the record, my name is Gordon Clay from Brookings, Oregon. As 2020 comes to a close and as chair of the Suicide Awareness and Prevention Council, I want to take this opportunity to reflect on our first year as a council for Curry County. We were able to fill 15 of the 17 positions with highly qualified individuals who are actively involved with the various stakeholder groups in our county as it relates to suicide. We got off to a good start on our first meeting February 6th, laying a foundation for the council to look at the unmet needs specific to Curry County and suicide awareness and prevention. 3 weeks later, on February 28th, the Oregon Health Authority confirmed Oregon's first presumptive case of COVID-19, and on April 16th was Oregon's first COVID death. The pandemic immediately impacted council members since most of them worked in segments directly impacted by the pandemic. We immediately shifted our focus to get to the issue of mental health, keep the issue of mental health in the forefront, since in previous pandemics it had taken a back seat, which led to higher rates of suicide and drug overdoses in the long run. We began by getting the message out about the potential residual impact against the mental health workers, first responders, and students. We distributed crisis wallet cards, the 741-741 crisis line, and flyers how to have a conversation about mental health through community-based organizations, and placed in food bags distributed to families through schools. We put together a trifold informational brochure titled Recognizing and Responding to Suicide Risk During the Pandemic, which was distributed to every household and business in the county through direct mail and placed in counter racks in over 100 retailers in the county, and it's right there. We hope that our work has helped to keep the county suicide rate to 7 through October, but are very concerned that once rent abatement and unemployment programs get reduced December 31st and evictions start to climb, that number is expected to climb as well. We hope to keep working to encourage citizens to become first-line defense with their families and friends to avert situations that require use of what is expected to be an incredibly overburdened healthcare system in the coming months. We're looking for applicants for current experience in law enforcement, medical doctor, nurse, hospital board member, or community care organization, a social worker, therapist, counselor, or peer support specialist trained in suicidality, someone from the elder services, juvenile programming, a mayor or administrator, a faith-based community member, and a youth ambassador. Applications are on the county website and are due to the county commissioner's office no later than the close of business December 14th. Yesterday, OHA reported a new daily record of 24 deaths due to COVID. To date, Curry County has had 143 cases, 37 in the last 8 days, and 2 deaths. Use a mask that covers your nose and wear it. This isn't a hoax anymore, and our hospitals don't have that many beds. Don't make our doctors have to decide if your case is worth treating.
Thank you, sir. Next, we're going to move on to presentations. And Sheriff, before we do yours, did you have some recognitions?
Just real quick. Under public comments, Mary Rowe did have some comments on the housing ordinance. She shared those with me, so I'll bring those up at that time.
Okay.
She was going to send us some other ones, but they did not arrive.
Okay.
The other thing, just under public comment, is Commissioner Boyce was elected District 4 Chair and Chair of the Legislative Committee, I believe, right? For AOC. So we just wanted to acknowledge that represent.
Not chair of the Legislative Committee, but on the committee.
Okay.
That's a big job on the chair.
Okay.
You are the chair of the district committee, though.
Which is, yes,
District
which
4.
is Douglas, Coos, Curry, Josephine, Jackson counties.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5A, Marine Deputy of the Year, Sheriff Ward.
This is what we've been waiting for.
You guys again?
Good morning. Is Randy on?
Randy, could you unmute your microphone and say hello, please, so we know you're here?
Hello, Henry, State Marine Board.
There you go.
Oh, there he is. Hey, I just want to make a real clarification real quick. I really appreciate Gordon's updates on suicide prevention, but just a clarification on the numbers. When he said 37 in the last 2 days, that's not correct. We have 37 active cases in Curry County as of today.
And the 2 deaths, none for 2 months. None for 2 months, I think.
Elderly people who...
Yeah.
Yes.
Both of them were super seniors.
Yeah.
One of them was entering hospice. The other one had extreme underlying conditions.
Yes.
But good information, Gordon.
So we're going to get back to this. Good morning, Randy. That's Randy Henry. He is the boating safety manager of the Oregon State Marine Board. A couple weeks ago, let me back up a little bit. Sheriff Ward, thank you for your allowing us to make this presentation to the Board of Commissioners today. So a couple weeks ago, I found out that the Post Marine Board Academy, not Academy, but the Post Marine Board meeting, they had awards given out, and found out that Walter Sherbarth was the Deputy of the Year. And I wanted Randy to come on this morning and give his little speech about that. Go ahead, Randy.
All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming so. All right. Yeah, thank you, Sheriff Pat, members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity and allowing me to participate in your meeting today. And thank you, Sheriff Ward, for helping to facilitate this honor as well. I'm here to share with you the Oregon State Marine Board's Officer of the Year Award, which goes to a longtime member of the Curry County Sheriff's Office. This goes to someone who has been a fixture in the Marine community for more than 2 decades. As one of Oregon's most skilled jet boat operators, he has been a key part of the Marine Board training program for years and played a major role in the annual jet boat training in Gold Beach, as well as academy, drift, and other specialized trainings. Senior Deputy Walter Sherbarth has been a Marine Deputy for the Curry County Sheriff's Office for close to 25 years. His broad smile and firm-shouldered clasp is available to any friend of the Marine program. He is always willing to assist others when needed. He is a native son and knows the famous Rogue River as well as any individual ever has. He has combined this with a strong desire to do what's right within the local community, but with a special focus on saving lives. Over the years, Walter has received multiple life-saving awards due in no small part to his skill in navigating the treacherous road to pluck out the fishermen who tease fate year after year. Blossom Bar has claimed many lives as well, and Walter has been front and center in complex rescues, administering CPR, locating and recovering victims, transporting victim families, and working to prevent injuries and fatalities. He even defended Marine Board staff one time when the occasional intoxicated boater tried to throw him in the river. That's a long story. It has been a pleasure over the years to watch the dynamic duo of Walter Sherbarth and Ted Keefe patrol the Rogue Chetco Sixes and Elk Rivers and bring the local voters more focused on catching fish than on boating safety. Walter has taken sole possession of the duty this last year, but continues to find ways to carry the safe boating message forward. In the past year, Deputy Sherbarth has worked with local nonprofits, the Marine Board, and Gold Beach Rangers District of the U.S. Forest Service to implement the first life jacket loaner station within Curry County at Sapien Creek, boat launch on the Rogue River. He has implemented a new and aggressive approach to encouraging life jacket use among visitors and longtime residents alike, urging each person to demonstrate responsible operation on the river. You'll often hear Deputy Sherbarth promote water safety messaging, no matter whose message it is, with the statement, "Hey, we're all on the same team." Don't let Senior Deputy Sherbarth's humble, aw-shucks demeanor, broad smile fool you. Behind that badge is a lean, mean Marine deputy who just wants to make a difference and save lives. For your many years of service and all the lives you've saved, the Marine Board and the members of the Law Enforcement Advisory Group are proud to award you, Deputy Walter Sherbarth of the Curry County Sheriff's Office, the State of Oregon Marine Officer of the Year Award for 2020. As Walter would say, hey, be cool out there. In addition to that, this is particularly relevant this year. We are at now 25 boating fatalities statewide. That could be an all-time record in the state of Oregon, at least since the Marine Board was formed. The vast majority of these, probably 21 of these, were related to the simple fact that people failed to wear a life jacket. They would have, 21 of those folks would likely survive if they'd had a life jacket on. It's a very simple message. It's one we're going to focus on in the coming year. With COVID, there are a lot of people out there on the water who haven't spent a lot of time on the water, and they don't understand some of these facts. So to have somebody like Walter, who is out there pushing that focus and helping to educate people, it's going to help save lives. And I will note that things were pretty safe this year in Curry County, and we appreciate Walter's emphasis on that and Sheriff Ward's support for the program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Randy. On behalf of the State Marine Board, they presented Walter with a cup that says, Officer of the Year, Deputy Sherbarth, Curry County Sheriff's Office. I noticed on the package it says, this is not a toy, Walter. Come on up here. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's stand up. Yeah.
So as the sheriff, I wanted to make sure that we recognize Walter. This happened a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to bring before the Board of Commissioners and our county to let them know what kind of people we have working in the Sheriff's Office. This is not the first award that he's been given. We've had the most approved program of the year for several years, and he's had several life-saving awards. And today, from the Sheriff's Office, I want to give him a certificate that says, Outstanding Service. Curry County hereby recognizes Marine Deputy Walter Sherbarth for outstanding service awarded by the Oregon State Marine Board as Officer of the Year. Congratulations and thank you for your service. Go ahead and have a speech. I know you want to.
Thank you. Which one of these works? Thank you to the sheriff. Thank you, Randy. Thank you to the State Marine Board for the tools and the training. I couldn't have done it without them. Definitely not. And then primarily, thank you to the citizens. It seems to me like over the last decade, people are starting to buy into my spiel on public safety. These guys are going to say, well, you don't write a lot of tickets. Well, I think there's reasons why we don't write a lot of tickets. Is because we've got people out there doing what people are supposed to be doing. Either that or everybody that we used to write tickets to went and grew up. That's probably what happened. It's not primarily the Rogue to me. There is the Elk, the Chetco, and the Sixes. Those are beautiful streams, as Randy mentioned. But to me, most everything really evolves around the Rogue. And over the last 2 decades of seeing what it was like 25 years ago, where there was quite a few people dying, to where today we got people wearing life jackets. We got life jacket kiosks going because of Dave Barnes. It seems to me that we're more about prevention right now than we are response, and that's what I want to be known for.
I'd like to say it's nice to see you reach out to people like Dave Barnes and get that community involvement as well.
He's doing all the work.
Yeah, he
That's the idea. Delegate.
Thank you, Dave.
And I'd also like to say it sure is nice to have our sheriff's department in here getting awards and all that we've been getting lately. That's a nice plus for this county, and it's something to hang your hat on and be proud. So, great job, guys.
Yeah, I don't think we've let it affect us, have we, Sheriff?
And I mean guys by women too, everybody. So.
Anyway, hey, thank you for the nice words, Court. That was a pretty cool email. I saved that one.
Oh, I might reference that. I've watched this guy grow up and grow into the best whitewater cop in America, I believe. And, I want to say something, though. However, Jared Gray might be the only one that I know of that could actually throw you in the river. I don't think anybody else could.
I think we probably could.
We're proud of you, Walter.
Thank you, Court. Seems like the rocks are starting to move out there, though. Or maybe my eyes are getting bad.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Randy hasn't aged a day in 20 years.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you guys. Very good to see you again, Corey.
Good to see you. Thank you.
The 37 cases of COVID have happened in the last 8 days, according to OHA. And 6 of them were yesterday. So I just wanted to clear up, those are from OHA, and we know data doesn't match directly because reporting and all that kind of stuff, but that's 37 Curry County citizens contracted COVID and reported in the last 8 days.
Thank you.
And it is 120 since September 2nd. So that's, but I'm saying 120 additional just since September 2nd. So your point is well taken. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the consent agenda.
I have a statement to read, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right.
It's
You wanted to
okay.
make a statement.
Thank you. It'll just take less than a minute here. Commissioner Pash and Gold Censure, November 18th. I want citizens to know I did nothing wrong, and if I was faced with similar situations, would properly respond the same in order to do my job and protect the citizens' interest. The censure is another terrible but predictable embarrassment for Curry County from an overreaching Board of Commissioners, and no surprise was prepared and planned in secret. It is yet one more political, punitive, defamatory, and unnecessary attempt against my character. I will have a full statement and response at our December 16th meeting. That's all.
All right. We are going to move on to consent agenda. 6A, minutes business meeting for November 18th. B, appoint Mountain Drive Special Task District Board Member. C, adoption of a position description for an existing position, Deputy Clerk 1. D, declassification of an employee, Lindsay Harris. E, Curry Health Foundation grant for emergency management. F, adding Terry Hanscom, treasurer-elect, to Umpqua bank accounts. G, authorizing special procurement body scanner. We're going to take I out for now, and we can bring it back later. And H, and then I, appoint Commissioner Boyce as Curry County Board of Commissioners voting delegate at the annual December 11th, 2020 AOC meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair. Accept consent agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, moving on to 7A, CARES, Corona Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, COVID-19 relief funds for small business in Curry County. Ms. Madsen.
Could we?
We can close that. Yeah, you can close that one out.
Do we have a?
You can close that, Summer.
Well, we have somebody joining us
Oh,
from
okay, I'm
CCD,
sorry.
so there she is.
Oh, we're right on the minute.
This is super sensitive. Morning, Teresa. So,
May I introduce her real quick?
yeah, so I'm Summer Madison, Economic Development, and with us this morning is Teresa Haga from CCD, and Commissioner Boyce is going to do an introduction while I pull up my information.
Thank you, Coordinator Madison. Well, it is a real pleasure. Teresa Haga is the Executive Director, Finance Manager, Coos Curry Douglas Business Development Corporation. CCD is a private, nonprofit corporation formed in 1971. CCD is designated an economic development district as well as a certified development company. CCD's mission is to encourage, this is the good part too, CCD's mission is to encourage economic development, diversify local economies, support industry, and enhance the quality of life for all in our region. Ms. Haga has worked for CCD for 20 years in various positions. Prior to CCD, Teresa worked in the banking and investment industry. Coos Curry Douglas holds memberships with the following associations: National Association of Development Companies, National Association of Development Organizations, Oregon Economic Development Association, and Oregon Economic Development Districts. Teresa's community involvement includes serving as a board member with the following associations: Bay Area Chamber of Commerce, member and Economic Development Committee member, South Coast Development Council, Umpqua Economic Development Partnership, and the Roseburg Town Center. Sure glad you answered my email 2 or 3 days ago. Short notice. Welcome, Teresa Haga. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I've put together a PowerPoint, and I will go through that, and I've got, yeah, I'll need my glasses anyway, so I can't wear this.
May I interrupt? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we also have Executive Director of the Southern Oregon Workforce Investment Board? Are you on there, Kyle? He was going to try and listen in and video in.
He might be watching on the YouTube live feed.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, so here we go. I've got 5 documents to follow up on the PowerPoint, but this is just an overview, I think, of the highlights that need to be taken into consideration as far as accepting the agreement from the state. So this is the CARES Act funding for Curry County small business, and this is a grant that's coming through the Department of Administrative Services specific for Coronavirus Relief Fund. And the Oregon legislature, in partnership with the governor, allocated $55 million of federal CARES Act funds for the purpose of providing financial assistance to small businesses affected by economic conditions as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. These funds are allocated to counties to deploy in the form of grants to small businesses who have been financially impacted. So this is exciting. We really get to play a role in the distribution of that funding on a more local level. So this is what the funds allocation looks like, and I have the spreadsheet to share with you after we're done here. But for Curry County, our population's almost 23,000. So the base that every county was given was 500,000, and then the balance of the 55 million was distributed based on the population of each county. So like several, probably 10 counties in Oregon, our population represented 1% of the state. So that means that we are receiving an additional $201,109 for a total of $701,109. Implementation and targeting. So Curry County is strongly encouraged by the state to implement its grant program so that it targets the following types of businesses: historically underserved population groups, businesses with less than 100 employees, businesses within rural areas, and then businesses that identify as minority-owned, women-owned, service-disabled, veteran-owned, and emerging small businesses. So initially, last night, I was going to take out the businesses within rural areas because that clearly applies to our entire county, but I wanted to just show that the state did take into consideration an emphasis on the rural areas, which we appreciate. Okay, so eligibility requirements for small businesses. And I'm sure you've seen the 23-page agreement from the state, and I'm just highlighting what I think is important to grasp today. So the eligibility requirements for our small businesses are that the business is headquartered in Oregon and has its principal operations in Oregon. If required by Oregon law to be registered to do business in Oregon, the business is so registered. The business is either for-profit or an entity tax exempt under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. During the performance period, which is between March 1st and December 30th, so basically when the time frame of the pandemic so far, the business incurred necessary expenditures due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. The business has 100 or fewer employees. So let me scroll here real quick, and I guess I didn't put this on presentation mode. Too late. So the business was affected in either one of the following two ways. So only one needs to apply. For-profit and nonprofit, limited to 501c3 corporations, businesses that were prohibited from operations as directed by Executive Orders 2012 and 2065. So there were some small businesses that were shut down and were not able to continue their business, and so that would make them eligible. Or for profit and nonprofit limited to 501c3 corporations, businesses that can demonstrate a 1-month decline in sales of 25% or more incurred by the COVID-19 pandemic between, again, the period of March 1st through November 30th, and that's because December's not over yet, so they won't really have those numbers, as compared against the same period of time in 2019. And then at the bottom here, it says only one application may be submitted per business. Okay, so the decline in sales of 25% or more, I really don't think we will have many businesses that can't meet that criteria. Ineligible businesses.
You can go to slideshow if you want to.
I'm afraid it's going to set me back to the beginning.
All right.
I'm almost done. So ineligible businesses, passive real estate holding companies and entities holding passive investments, nonprofit entities that do not have federal 501c3 status, businesses that experience a decline in revenues for reasons other than those caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which are seasonal or cyclical business cycles, much of what we see with the tourism industry here in Curry. Businesses that are delinquent on federal, state, or local taxes that were due on or before the date of application, and I know that that was an item that County Council has brought to the forefront of concern, so I'm glad that that's in there. Businesses that do not comply with federal, state, and local laws and regulations. And then businesses that have closed and do not intend to reopen. So we have a few of those as well. All right, so the timeline of this grant is extremely short. Right now we're at December 2nd. The grant expires December 30th. This is where I'm going to ask Teresa to chime in a little bit. This is clearly fluid and based on some deliverables that we've identified and how we're going to make this work and have it all done by the 30th of December. So December 2nd through 3rd, the agreement signed and returned to the state. And I did put the 3rd in the event that it has to show filed. So worst case scenario, if we can't rush it today, it will go tomorrow. And then December 4th, execute advertising and business outreach. Commissioner Boyce and I have conversed about boots on the ground and how we will make sure that we cover especially those underserved that the grant is calling for. Some businesses aren't consistent on social media or might not even have an online presence, so the most assured way we can get in contact with those businesses really is face-to-face. Let's see. So the state can send the funds within 5 business days of the dated agreement. So that means that the county would receive those funds between December 8th and 9th. In the interim, we are hoping to have a contract finalized with CCD no later than December 7th. Then I think Commissioner Boyce and Teresa and I discussed yesterday the deadline for application receipt would be December 16th. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, Teresa. Oh, well, I didn't finish the slideshow till 12:27 last night, so there's 2 Decembers, my apologies. December 9th through 30th, distribution of awarded grant funds to businesses. December 30th, the grant expires, and then January 5th is the final grant report due to the state. And so I do apologize. As you know, when it comes to COVID and small businesses, the information's literally changing by the hour. And so I did complete this, collected all the information, but completed it pretty late last night. And then, Teresa, do you want to touch on that timeline before we move forward on contracting?
Sure. I think the timeline, there's a little wiggle room. You do have, I guess I want to back up just a little bit because you guys are actually successful in getting quite a bit of money for your region, which is wonderful. It's an opportunity that, again, we're blessed to see happen for our small businesses in Curry County. I can give you a little background from round 1 through round 4 for Curry County. 53 businesses received grants. 24 of them received $5,000 grant. 1 received a $10,000. 2 received $16,000. 2 received $6,000. 1 received an $18,000 grant. 1 received an $8,000. 20 received $2,500. 1 received a $3,500 grant, and 1 is going to be receiving a $34,000 grant. So, with that in mind, I think when we get to the eligibility, you have a lot of money to move in a short window of time. So, I think that's where I'd like you guys definitely to focus on as far as your grant size, because you guys have that authority to set that. As far as timeline, I think Summer is correct. If we could have this launched and open to accepting applications no later than the 9th, and kind of hopefully have that truly allocated by the 16th, because then you have to go back once you've intaked those applications and verify that they're truly eligible. Then you have to award the actual grant, and they have to, of course, accept it, do their additional certifications, fill out the W-9, and submit that back. So it's a 2-part step, and we're actually going to lose 2 working days. We'll lose the 24th and the 25th just because it's the holiday. So it gives us about a 10 to 13-day window to deploy this program on behalf of Curry County. So it is tight. And so I think if we can meet those initial deadlines, I think you'll be successful. And if we can set the parameters on the grant size in accordance to what we think we'll be able to get out, we won't have to send any of this money back. And that would truly be the goal, is to make sure that it remains in Curry County and that we don't have to write a check back to the state come the 1st of January.
Could we?
Yes, Commissioner Gold.
I have a quick question. What was the total amount that was granted to begin with?
For Curry County?
For Curry County.
500,000 was the base, and then we received an additional 201.
No. I'm talking about grants that have already been received, because it looks like there's a huge amount of difference between what we've got to pass out now versus what was actually given.
Teresa, I don't know, can we identify? It's been kind of first come, first serve as far as who's been eligible. So
yeah, no, only round 3 allocated. You got $75,000 that was geared just to Curry County. So the previous rounds were again allocated to the regions, and it was first come, first serve. Only one of the rounds had it broke down per county, which was round 3. Coos got $125,000, Curry got $75,000, and Douglas got $150,000. Otherwise, it's just one pot of money for the full region on the previous rounds. What the governor, by doing this, is she's allocating to each county their own pot of money. So this is truly an opportunity to really spread that assistance to just your businesses.
Commissioner Boyce?
Oh, thank you. Could you repeat the part, just so everybody understands, that any ungranted money will be returned to the state? I want to make sure everybody understands.
I have one question. What's the process look like for, well, making sure that businesses are legal to get the money, so we don't get next March or April get a bill from the state saying these businesses weren't able to be awarded this money? Is there that kind of liability in this? I mean, are we facing that kind of liability? And if we are, what is the process for making sure these businesses are actually eligible? I can say I lost 40%, but when my tax returns are done and I only lost 18%, is the county going to be liable, I guess is what I'm wondering.
Right, so that's a conversation or an item to consider in the conversation in contracting with CCD. The grant agreement through the state does require several layers of insurance, but also the application, which I'm going to show you after this, really asks for those details.
Okay.
And so on there, there's a caveat that says, you agree that this is true to the best of your knowledge. Beyond that, does CCD have access to the matrix that would show, Teresa, that taxes are current? Because I'm concerned about trying to manage that through the county tax department anyways.
The state, I'm just going to be honest, you don't want to make it so cumbersome. They're going to certify, and if for some reason it comes back that business owner has certified that they were in, in compliance and or not, that money could be requested to be returned. That would be when I'm assuming when they get their 1099 and their taxes are done. If the federal government sees they got a $50,000 grant from Curry County and they were delinquent, I think that's going to raise some red flags. But as far as what the intake entities are doing, or even the state of Oregon and Round 5, is if they had received, PPP or EIDL or whatever, they're going to disclose that. Any CARES Act to date, they have to disclose. As far as businesses that do have to show the 25% impact, they actually have to provide documentation to show that. So they're going to take, let's say, a month. Let's say they're going to take May of 2020, and they're going to also have to provide the financial statement for May of 2019. And that's where that 25% impact is demonstrated. But as far as the intake person asking for proof that their taxes are current and stuff like that, that has not been a requirement up to date. I would say that would be very cumbersome, and you would not be successful in getting this money out. Sometimes businesses don't even have their 2019 or 20. They might have an extension, but they don't have those. They're going to certify to the state that they are current. As far as being registered with the state of Oregon, the intake person is actually going to go onto the state's website and verify that they're active. We print that off and it goes with the application. So there are some intake processes, but as far as really making sure that they're current on their county taxes and federal taxes and state taxes, we have not done that to date, and I would not recommend that. I would just take that they're certifying that they are telling the truth, and that again, if for some reason it comes back, then audit that they're not, that those funds would have to be returned. And
I want to implore the county, people that own businesses in this county, to file for this money. If you feel like you are due some of this money, please do it. But I also want to make sure that the county is protected. So, council, you've read these contracts and you're comfortable with them as far as the county.
Well, the state writes them so that we are responsible to the state for, wrongful distribution and spending and things like that. And then we write the contract, as Summer kind of alluded to, with CCD that says they'll defend and identify us. And then when you have the applicant, they verify and swear that they're going to do everything right, and they'll pay it back if it's not. So we have all those things in place, and those are the standard mechanisms.
So we have legal recourse against the person, though.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to make sure. The county has legal recourse against the person.
We've taken the standard measures, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and I want to apologize before I move on to the next slide. Last Wednesday, when the deadline for submission of agenda items was due, where we're at right now with this is not where we were a week ago. And so my apologies for the details that are on the agenda routing slip that vary from where we are today. And I appreciate everybody's help in executing. It's been hard and fast since very late last night.
If I may. Go ahead. Go.
Well, no, I'm just
go ahead.
Couldn't be happier with the whole team concept here. It's all about recovery. There really isn't anything complex about this except reaching the people, and we'll do everything we can there. I just got the contract Saturday morning from the governor's office, and The state has put us in a little bit of a bind, but they've made it as easy as they can. Certainly CCD, Coordinator Madison has worked to have the most simple, easy to fill out application available. So, and then CCD's reputation, the audit system that they have at the corporate level, it's an insurance policy for our county. And so I'm just really thrilled to have this benefit and this help. Thank you.
Council Huddle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and Summer and Teresa. I was out working on some paperwork and I missed something. You mentioned the county can set some parameters. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more? What are you saying? We can set a limit on how much people can get? I'm just not sure what you're saying there.
Yeah, the county actually has the authority to add some eligibility and the grant amount size itself. That you have that right. The state's not dictating that, where they had in the previous rounds. And why I originally shared with court in summer, my recommendation was for Curry County to, as far as the actual grant size, to look at doing 5,000 as the minimum and 75,000 as the cap. But I've kind of gone back now, since I actually took the time and went back through the previous rounds just to kind of get that previous information I shared earlier about the total 53 businesses actually have received grants so far since COVID kicked in with all these rounds and the amount. And in order to move this amount of money, I think you need to up your grant sizes. And I think my original recommendation, again, is to offer it up to 100 to businesses that have 100 employees or less. Previous, it was only 25 or under. And also to businesses that have received up to 500,000 in CARES funding to date. Why I'm pressing for that is because you have a lot of these businesses that fall within that current recommendation from the state with these funds, to the hospitality, your current restaurants and stuff that are bars that are kind of on that current freeze, even though Curry is in the low kind of, they're better off than the rest of the state, where they could actually open back up come tomorrow and at least have limited capacity. They're really the ones that we want to make sure have access to this assistance, because they have been impacted more so than other businesses. So with making sure, a lot of those businesses probably did receive PPP from their local lender, and they probably receive an SBA EIDL loan. Again, those, if they're not handled right, the PPP could become a loan to that business, and for sure the SBA EIDL, other than the advance, is considered a loan, where this would be a grant. If you don't widen the eligibility criteria, a lot of those businesses probably would not be eligible to apply for these funds, and you might risk sitting on money that you can't get out. And that's what I'm fearful. You have about, less than a 2-week window to deploy, 3 times what you've deployed so far in that region. So I want to make sure, again, we can reach more businesses and that it's really hitting the target markets that you want it to hit.
Can we go to like local radio as well and ask them to do a public service message to all the businesses in the county?
Yeah, we actually, we have a reserve of $4,000 in the economic development budget that would be eligible for COVID expenses reimbursement that we have discussed using. We could use it out of the agreement and the funds coming from the state, but we don't want to take anything away from small businesses other than is necessary.
But most radio stations will do a public service announcement for free, so. Commissioner Boyce.
Thank you again. Kyle, if you're on there, Director Stevens, I think you had mentioned, I wanted clarification, you may have covered it well with Coordinator Madison, but so it was ready and willing to help with the promotion and the marketing on that. Is that your understanding?
Absolutely.
So we may not even be out.
So initially when I submitted the agenda routing slip, I was asking for a work group to be devised to execute this program. And since then, we've been able to procure a lot of that administrative work through CCD, hopefully. So with that, the conversations that we've had based on the limited amount of time that we have is that we would refer to the regional economic response team that we've been working with throughout this, and that does include SOWIB, SBDC, CCD, SCDC, The counties, like there's the chambers, those are our, we have that core group. And we felt like, because time is of the essence, that would be our fallback. Because Douglas and Coos are doing the same thing. So we had asked Coos if we could get a copy of their agreement with CCD. They were still in draft mode, their council was. So that's where Council Huddle stepped in and said, let me do what I can, and he did.
Okay.
We'll beat him to the punch.
Commissioner Gold?
I was just wondering if you'd maybe contacted Seroptimus and some of those Lions Club that have access to a lot of the businesses and get them to reach out to their people. I think that might be good also.
Absolutely. So one of the many groups for Target is Seroptimists. I didn't have Lions Club on there. We have Rotary, we have the Chamber, and we have a huge listserv, and the city administrators who administer or give the business licenses in their communities.
Or Council Huddle?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Again, question for Teresa and maybe Summer, but I'm getting back to the parameter part with the minimum, maximum. What happens if we don't? I mean, the folks applying for the grants will be submitting their, essentially proof of loss with their documentation. What happens if the county does not put these minimum or maximums and just lets people make the claims and we distribute according, to what the applications say or what we judge the applications to support? What is that enough just to say you must support it? And then, because I'm just trying to figure out, I think it's a tough call for the commissioners to make, as to say, let's have a minimum, maximum. We don't even know what the claims will be, but I just am wondering what happens if we don't set a minimum, maximum? Does that make it harder, or what's the downside of that?
I think you open up yourself for more troubles coming back to the county. So let's say one business comes out and say, well, the county gave me a $30,000 grant, and you have the business owner next door and said, well, how come I only got $5,000? By having those parameters set, again, if your minimum is 10,000, let's say, instead of 5,000, it's any business that has 2 or less employees would only qualify for a $10,000 loan. Then any business that has more than 3 employees, they're getting based either on like 2,000 per FTE or 3,000 per FTE to a maximum cap of $75,000. Again, you're opening up to businesses that have up to 100 employees, and again, that have not received more than $500,000 in CARES. I think when you don't have those parameters set, you're going to have people feel like, well, how did you get more than I got? And I think that would open up the door for more issues down the road.
Mr. Melzer?
Summer, can you just clarify for the record? I know that they have to comply with local laws, and I just want people to understand that includes having your business license, correct?
It does.
So this is a good example of why we encourage people to pay that $100 fee to get that business license, because then it makes them eligible for this. I know you have a listserv that goes out to everyone that has a business license. And if somebody hasn't applied for their business license, they're probably not getting that message unless they see it through a newspaper or radio or those means. Is that correct? Or through a chamber or something like that?
It is. I've got to say the business license registration was the biggest blessing in all of this, because it was just a matter of pulling those email addresses together and knowing who's going to need the help. I do have the chambers on that listserv as well, and the city administrators, and then I do have some businesses within city limits that have asked to be put on that distribution. And it's also on social media and the website. So I've made that as accessible as possible.
Okay. So what are we looking for?
Do you want to?
Summer, can you go through, Council Huddle had talked about the contracts and the agreements. They weren't in the packet because they weren't ready. I know you sent some stuff out late last night. Because the public didn't have an opportunity to look at any of that, can you just go through that? I know you have some of that ready to share with us, just so they can kind of see what's.
Yeah, I think you still have more presentation, don't you?
I do. So there are a couple documents I feel are confidential in nature as far as CCD is concerned. So there are a couple of documents they did share that I chose not to make available to the public. If CCD wants to do that, they can do that. I just wasn't comfortable with that. But the last slide here is contracting with CCD. And I pulled this directly from the grant agreement wording. Direct administrative costs allowed. Grantees' administrative costs directly attributable to the administration of its grant program and funded by this grant can be reimbursed or otherwise paid with grant funds. Such direct administrative costs shall not exceed 5% of the grant funds awarded under this grant. So, in that we're getting $701,109, and 5% for administrative costs would be a max of $35,055.45. Yes, Commissioner.
Are all of the administrative duties going to be performed by CCD, or is the county going to be doing some of that also? So the 5%, should that all go to CCD or partially the county and partially CD? Just curious.
May I say something? I just know from history so far in these rounds, you'll never spend that 5% because it's too short of a period of time. You only can use the true costs. So if you have, let's say, 3 staff members working on this, and you're dedicating that cost for that individual, you're going to have a hard time spending $35,000 in probably a 14-day period of time. So I think I estimated that this would cost, if we did it, we would not do more than 2%. I think it was $15,000 without going back. Because we've not ever reached that. Any of the previous rounds that we've done for the state of Oregon, and one of the rounds was $1.5 million. The lowest one, I mean, there's just no way we would ever reach that. So if the county decides to cut their own checks and do their own 1099s, you're going to have that admin to include. So far, the counties and what we've done, again, with the state, we've handled deploying the checks as well as deploying the 1099s that will be required to go out. So it will be determined on the relationship of what you're asking the administrative person to do. So you'll have to decide that if you're going to do that yourselves or if you're going to have CCD do that.
Commissioner Boyce?
Oh, no, that's a statewide standard guidance or formula there. And it's a bargain, and we definitely want CCD, in my view, to get paid for the full work, which includes issuing the checks, all the applications. We'll be involved and closely consulted. I'm very confident. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Schmelzer?
Commissioner Gold, I understand your concerns. It's like, why can't we Summer has invested all of her time in the last couple weeks on this program. How do we get that reimbursed is probably what you're thinking. What we do is we do reimbursement for Summer's time through the CARES Act, through those COVID reimbursement claims. So her time wouldn't come out of this $35,000, but we are getting that reimbursed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just wanted it clarified.
All right.
Thanks. So the draw, yes, sir.
It is 10 o'clock, and we have to take a 10-minute recess.
Okay.
So we are going to why don't we come back at 10:15? It's 10:03. Let's come back at 10:15.
There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
I'm a facilitator. We got a grant from the Ford Family Foundation to do a feasibility study and renditions, and that's what you're looking at here with this display. We actually have two buildings. We have the community building that we're in now. This is the American Legion Hall next door, and this is the floor plan for the whole complex. And it is our biggest meeting space. The American Legion Hall has a kitchen that needs to be refurbished, and so far in about 90 days we've generated about $73,000 from our local community, and this project has a budget of about $1.5 million. We're hoping to start construction in 3 years.
It's a rehabilitation of existing buildings, and it's important to take care of what we have.
Julie was always a voracious reader. She'd carry 2 novels on an airplane because she'd read one on a 3-4 hour ride. And at some point, I began to notice that she would read a page and couldn't remember what she had just read, and she'd have to go back and read it again.
I don't remember much these days after I read, but less does for me, and I love it.
Welcome to Oregon's capital, your Oregon capital. The capital is home to the Oregon State Legislature, the governor, Secretary of State, and the state treasurer. This is Oregon's third state capital, the previous two having been destroyed by fires in 1855 and 1935. The current building was designed in 1938 by Francis Keeley, a New York architect. The wings were completed and dedicated in 1977.
I'm very pleased to join with all of you this afternoon for the dedication of the new Capitol wings. I welcome all of our many friends and distinguished guests who are able to be with us to share in this proud day.
The Senate wing is named after Jason Bowe, who was the Senate president. The House wing is named after Phil Lang, who was the Speaker of the House, both during the 1977 legislative session. Welcome to the Rotunda. The 4 large murals that grace the walls in the Rotunda represent 4 events that shaped Oregon's history. They were painted by Frank Schwartz and Barry Faulkner. The first mural, located on the southeast wall, depicts Captain Robert Gray's discovery of the Columbia River in 1792. Gray, an American explorer, named the river after his ship, the Columbia Rediviva. Because Gray was an American, his discovery laid the foundation to the United States' claim to the Pacific Northwest. This opened up important trade relations with the natives. The second mural on the southwest wall shows Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, 2 of our nation's most famous explorers. Lewis and Clark were appointed by President Thomas Jefferson to lead an expedition west across the continent. The expedition, named Corps of Discovery, left St. Louis, Missouri with a contingency of experienced frontiersmen in the spring of 1804 and arrived 19 months later at the Pacific coast in 1805. The mural depicts the expedition portaging Celilo Falls near the Dalles, Oregon. The 2 other historical people in the mural, Sacagawea, an 18-year-old Shoshone Native American with her baby, who was the only woman on the journey, and York, the first African American to come to the Pacific Northwest. The presence of Sacagawea and her baby served to allay the suspicions of the native tribes that the expedition encountered during their long journey. York was much admired by the Indians. When the expedition returned to the east, York remained behind and was the first African American to own land in Oregon Territory. The third mural on the northwest wall portrays the arrival of the first non-native women to the Oregon Territory. The women were missionaries, Eliza Spalding and Narcissa Whitman, who came to convert natives to Christianity. The women are being greeted by Dr. John McLaughlin, chief factor of the Hudson Bay Company. Because of his generous support of the settlers, McLaughlin is considered to be the father of Oregon. The fourth mural on the northeast wall depicts the Great Wagon Train Migration of 1843. In the 1840s and 50s, nearly 3,500 pioneers made their way west across the Oregon Trail. They came for the abundant resources of fertile soil and free land. There were 900 people in the first wagon train migration. Nearly 600 were children. In the mural, the pioneers are shown resting at the Dalles before making the arduous journey down the Columbia River.
In 2008, the House and Senate wings were remodeled due to health and safety issues. This was the first upgrade since 1977.
The centerpiece of the Capitol Rotunda is the bronze replica of the Oregon seal sculpted by Ulrich Ullerhusen. Ullerhusen also designed the Oregon Pioneer and the 6 cast bronze sculptures over the inside and the outside of the main entrance. The seal includes 9 symbols of Oregon: a British man-of-war ship leaving our shore, an American steamship arriving, the western sunset, mountains, stand of timber, wildlife, sheaf of wheat, plow and pickaxe, and the American eagle. The phrase "the Union" was the motto of the state until it was changed by the 1987 legislature to the state's territorial government motto, "She flies with her own wings." There are 33 stars in the seal symbolizing that Oregon was the 33rd state to be admitted into the Union in February 14th, 1859. The rotunda rises 106 feet from the floor to the ceiling. Directly overhead, you can see elements of the seal lining the walls of the rotunda. The Capitol's exterior is faced with white marble from the Danby Quarry in Vermont. The walls inside the Capitol are lined with rose travertine marble from Gardner, Montana. Floors and staircases utilize large squares of Phoenix Napoleon gray marble from Carthage, Missouri, with Art Deco borders of black radial marble from Vermont.
Russell Zanolinski, a Springfield city employee, designed this piece of art from 3,250 different items that he collected from the city sewer. After boiling them, it took 60 hours to assemble.
The governor's formal or ceremonial office is home to the sitting governor of Oregon. The governor's reception area table was a gift from Francis Keeley, architect of the present Capitol. The ceremonial office is where the governor holds press conferences, bill signings, and other special events. Above the fireplace is a hand-painted map of Oregon, which was painstakingly restored after the fire of 2008. This is the governor's ceremonial desk and chair. Most of the furniture in the office was designed by the architect and has been in the building since 1938. With the exception of the smaller slanted top desk, the desk was used by legislators in both the House and the Senate chambers of the previous Capitol building.
On August 30th, 2008, a 3-alarm fire, which started on the terrace, burned the governor's ceremonial office. Firefighters were able to extinguish the blaze in 30 minutes. The governor set up a temporary office outside of the Capitol while restoration work was done.
Welcome to the House of Representatives.
All right, we are back in session. It is 10:15 on December 2nd, 2020. Ms. Madison, if you'd like to continue. Madison.
So a couple of things I want to mention really quick before we move forward is right now we estimate we have about 1,000 businesses, unincorporated and incorporated within the cities that may be eligible for these funds. With that, I feel that a cap of 75,000 per business might be more than we're able to consider fair at this point. Another thing that I want to be considered as well is the fact that when we had the Business Oregon funds, 20 million, there was quite a bit of funds made available from Business Oregon, and we did promote that to our small businesses. But it was first come, first serve, and the grant opened and the grant closed within 42 minutes.
Yep.
And when you're a small business of 1 or 2 employees, there's no way you can stop running your business to apply. So I want to keep that in mind as well. I'm not sure that first come, first serve is in the best interest of our small businesses, but we do have a time crunch, so let's see how that works out. All right, let's see. I'll go back to this folder. Okay, so you had asked about the distribution statewide per county, and this is what it looks like. So you can see the populations, the percentages, who's getting what. It's a total of 55 million. Based on population alone was 37 million. You can look at some of our neighbors and how much they're receiving.
We used to be ahead of Crook County, or Hood River, excuse me.
Now see there, see if you see there are several counties that are at literally 0%, and then many that are at 1, including us. Okay, so then the next one I want to look at, this is the grant from the state, and I just wanted to get this on the record. I know that you've all seen this, but it's a 23-page document with emphasis on Exhibit A and E as far as what the state is looking for in their requirements. But you'll find in here there is a lot of detail on the insurance. The grant manager is local at the state, and one thing that we did cover ahead of time is you'll see the grant manager designee with the county is Julie Schmelzer, and until we are done drawing down COVID reimbursement funds, Director Schmelzer will remain as the grant manager until which time we will send written notice to the Department of Administrative Services at the state if you agree making that, Brad.
I don't know if Eric, if you can hear me, but the screen went out in here. I don't know if it's gone out in your office, but this is kind of important for the internet to see. There it is. Okay. I just want to make sure people can see this. And one more question, if I could. Is this going to be on the website as well? Could we put this up on the website? That way there's somebody could just download it to fill it out?
This is the agreement with the state.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The county
you're right.
needs to sign this so that then we can get the funds
You're right. Sorry.
sent to the county.
No, that went down, but it's back up again. That's all.
So it's a 23-page document and covers literally everything that we could imagine being concerned with. Of course, it's the state, so we don't have too many concerns. I don't think we can. So this is the...
we don't have any choice.
Yeah. So this is the contract draft that Council Huddle was kind enough to get drawn up for us after learning we weren't able to get a draft from Coos County nor Douglas, as they're both looking to contract their funds with CCD.
If I could, so in the prior rounds, apparently CCD administered some grant funds for the city of Roseburg.
Yes.
And I received a copy of that, I think, from CCD or from somebody, and I modeled our agreement with CCD in case Teresa even has any questions, essentially off the agreement with the city of Roseburg, and then we attach essentially the state. The agreement with CCD basically says that CCD will carry out the county's functions under the state grant, and we attach the state grant as an exhibit. So it's really that simple.
Okay.
Teresa, are you still there on the line? Okay, so...
Yes, I'm still...
Okay, great. So, yeah, I know you haven't seen this yet. So, yeah, so this is something that CCD will need to review as well before it is considered for signing. So it's pretty basic, and like Commissioner or Council Huddle mentioned, kind of is based off of the grant that CCD had with Roseburg, although I understand it wasn't needed to be as in-depth as the previous one. Most of our CARES funds have been channeled through Business Oregon and CCD. So this is the first time we've had to envision a scope of this capacity for grant processing. Okay, so this is the proposed, did I save the wrong one? I might have, you guys. Yep, I did. Anyways, it's a 2-page application I sent to you in email, and I will make it available to JJ so that he can put it into the extra packet information.
Summer, but the board did get the right one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this is just an example of the grant award notice that CCD would send to the small business, and shows them how much they would receive. And then Teresa's signed it, and we move on from there. So it's pretty fast process.
Okay, good.
So what I'm looking for today is the approval to sign the contract with CCD when it's been finalized with the minor details between CCD and council, and then also signature for the state grant between Department of Administrative Services and Curry County.
And then I've drafted orders for both of those actions, so we have a record. And because this is all of the agreements with the state say that we have to follow all the procedures, so we're just trying to document that we're doing the procedures.
Gotcha. Commissioner Gold?
Do those need to be 2 separate motions, one for the state and one for the county?
Correct. One for the state, and I recommend that be first, and then the second one for CCD.
Okay, I make a motion.
Commissioner Boyce?
Director Stevens, did you have anything you wanted to add in the interest of support on this project? Any comments? Are you still there?
Yes, I am, sir. Sorry, I was trying to get unmuted. No, I was just going to say, so we do have 103 contacts in our business service database. We have 2 FTE down there that can help CCD if they need to physically run documents. Any kind of support we can do, we're not looking for any admin or fees. It would all be free of charge. But if there's something we can do to help make this program successful, we will do anything we can. We also we have a lot of Business Oregon PPE that we'll be looking to distribute here real shortly in Curry County. So if we could kind of tie the promotion of this program in a path, kind of continually get that message out. And then we were requesting increasing money to look at firing that COVID Safety Ambassador program up again for an additional 4 weeks. So if that was of interest in Curry County, we would run another person down there, kind of passing out masks and PPE again and going kind of door to door. So that would give us another opportunity to not only hit businesses by email, but I think everybody has that concern. There's always that business that's not on a list that can use this the most, and we do our part to make sure that we're really getting this in front of everybody.
Thank you, Kyle.
Before I make a motion, do you have anything else you want to conclude with?
I don't. I just want to thank everybody for prioritizing this and understanding the urgency, and appreciate the extension of grace and the fluidity of the routing slip and where we're at right now.
Director Haga, do you have anything else you would like to add?
No, we just need to kind of fine tune up your eligibility, just so we know exactly what your eligibility will be.
And did you have the recommendation on that?
Yeah, I gave that recommendation, but I know that Summer was just kind of mentioning a few things. So again, that's up to you guys. I recommended, what I shared with Court and Summer was it was 5,000 to cap of 75,000. Again, up to 100 employees, and up to $500,000 in CARES funding to date. That would be the basic eligibility that you guys could set. But again, if you want to up that from 5 to 10, or if you want to take that down from 75 back to 50, you know, it's kind of up to you guys. So that's the kind of stuff that we would need to fine tune. I'm assuming you guys can get back to me on that.
Good. I'm leaning more toward the 50 for the cap.
5 and 50?
Or
I think, huh?
Even 2,000?
2,000?
Well, I think bringing it down to 2, like Teresa said, you're opening the county up to some problems there.
Okay.
I'm good, Mr. Chair, with 5 to 50. I think I agree with you there.
So am I, because if we did 75, 10 of those would wipe us out.
I agree.
So, Commissioner, did you have a motion?
Thank you. Council Huddle, thanks for making these motions easy. Commissioner Gold, thanks for your clarification that it should require 2 motions. So the first one is, which one is for the state here? Governmental agreement with the state of Oregon. I'm sorry. Make a motion to receive and disperse the COVID-19 relief funds with the state of Oregon under the 23-page agreement there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Should we read that, Mr. Chair? It's very short.
I think it's pretty. It'll be on the website.
Okay.
Roll, please.
Mr. Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, that the board approve an order authorizing the contract between Coos Curry Douglas Business Development Corporation to process, award, and report the COVID-19 relief funds for the Curry County businesses.
With the subject to those
amendments.
Was it the 5 and 50? Okay.
With agreed amendments, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Have a second?
I'll second that. I think it needs to be clarified that a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 50,000 be granted.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you all.
You guys are awesome.
Thanks, Ms. Haig.
Thank you both. Greatly appreciated.
All right.
We'll be talking soon.
Summer, do you want to end our call there so that our meeting doesn't still go out if somebody's still on there? I know there's pirates. Thank you. All right, moving on to 7C. Commissioner Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Needless to say, the minutes for October 7th were a bit controversial and some other periods there. And I'm not sure if we've actually went back and properly approved the minutes. But on the 10/7 2020 minutes, that's of course when Commissioner Gold mentioned the Lobster Creek Park and her claim that I was promoting logging it. If you go back and look at the video, the following meeting as well, I was pretty sure that I didn't call anyone a liar, but in trusting staff, and as recorded in the minutes, you will recall that I also made a very sincere apology and stated calling anyone a liar was unacceptable. So anybody can go back and see that for yourself. What I said was easy to verify. Quote, Commissioner Gold made a false statement. So I'm baffled. This was not a staff error, but a terrible misrepresentation of the truth in the minutes. Seemed to be on purpose, and the intent appears to be to mislead and then be placed in the permanent record. So again, I'm going to say, Mr. Chair, and this is what I want the records to reflect, quote, Commissioner Gold made a false statement, unquote. So I think we need to move forward and bring the minute recording policy back on the 16th with an order policy that is basic, simple, and follows Oregon state statutes. So I'm going to make a motion, or do you want to have discussion, then I can make a motion?
Mr. Gold, do you have any comment?
Well, in the AGRS that I disagree with, I've always been a proponent of making the minutes short, sweet, to the point, without direct quotations from everything. So, sorry. You could hear me anyway. Anyway, that's not part of the minutes here, so I'm okay with it.
Well, I'm going to repeat, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
It doesn't have to be on the 16th, but I think we need to develop a policy on what the future would hold. So often, staff has to do 5 pages of minutes when we have video backup, and then a backup to the video. And so I disagree. We've had this discussion a lot, Commissioner Gold and I, the last 4 years, and I've never been able to get through to the board that it's not necessary. That's my opinion, but the state of Oregon, once again, they don't do any written minutes. They have the video backup, and it's archived safely for a long time. So we've been, for 4 years, we've been kind of indirectly accepting this policy that word for word, and it ends up being 5 pages, which nobody ever reads except for us to make sure that it was accurate. So the board can decide when they want to bring it back, if they want to bring it back, and I hope they will. I thought we dealt with this in March or April of 19. I thought we dealt with this.
January 23rd.
Okay.
But
I knew it was in there, and it was just supposed to be very abbreviated minutes that the video and the audio would speak for itself of our minutes. We didn't have to do these long minute sessions anymore. And that's what the board voted on and voted in the affirmative to handle. Am I correct, JJ?
Yes.
Then why are the minutes still, if you go back even the last 3 months, they're averaging 4 to 5 pages? So we've got some confusion here.
Typically when I...
JJ, if you wouldn't mind, just go up to the microphone. We want to catch you on camera now, JJ. You're on the hook, buddy.
When I take my rough notes of the minutes, they're about 3,000 words. I pare it down to 2,000 words. If it was a pure transcript, it'd probably be 5,000 words. So, I mean, whatever the board wants, whatever direction the board wants, that's the direction I'll go. If it's all unanimous, you could say something along the lines of Commissioner 1 made a motion, Commissioner 2 seconded, vote was unanimous, and just leave it like that, and state what the motion was.
Right.
You know, so, and then like for today, Summer's presentation, you could just say Summer Manson gave a presentation about the CARES Act, commissioners discussed it, and the motions were made.
That's a very brief counsel.
Thanks. And the question is, why are minutes 4 pages? Well, we have a 2-page agenda, and the minutes have to then add for every subject on here. So naturally, the minutes are going to be longer than a 2-page agenda. So again, 4 pages of minutes on a 2-page agenda, I think is not outrageous. So you're just doing a lot of work, I think, is why the minutes are so long.
Ms. Schmelzer?
JJ and I have talked about the minutes before, and JJ did try doing a brief, and then we come into a meeting, and then commissioners want to know why something wasn't in there, so then they go back to having more detail. You know, I think it's, you know, JJ would love to do brief minutes, but then we have to, the board has to know, don't use those minutes to amend it to get your points across in those minutes. If we all agree this isn't going to be a forum to get our points across, and instead the minutes are just to record the actions and the main topics, JJ can go back to just doing basic minutes.
Commissioner Gold?
If I can just add real quick too.
Sorry.
We do keep getting solicited from a company that sells minute-taking software. It was actually something that was looked at under a previous, I think it was...
John Hitt.
John Hitt had looked at it. There's an expense to that. That's something you could do too, where JJ just sits there and all he does is put in the names of who did what, and that pops out. It just records the motions. We can go back to something like that as well as an alternative.
Commissioner Gold?
Quite frankly, I've always been a proponent of brevity. And coming up with the exact, I think you've done a great job, to be honest with you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to have to agree with Ms. Schmelzer about people trying to make a point later on. Make it short, sweet, and to the point. Motions, what they were about, and maybe the highlights of the discussion, not even that, if necessary. So,
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you. You go back 4 years I've been here, you're not going to find 1 or 2 times where I have gone through the minutes and said, no, we need to change something. So that in itself would suggest that I appreciate the job that Mr. Jesuit has done. And I think he'll tell you, Boyce hasn't looked over his shoulder, maybe never, on the way he's recorded the minutes to try and unduly influence. The reason this came to head here is because I apologize for something I did not say. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
So I am asking the board to agree that what council deems the minimum necessary per the law is all we should require Mr. Jesuit to produce. I do agree, though, that if there's a specific thing that is an action item or something like that on the agenda, to perhaps do a brief,
Well, generally speaking, if there's a no vote, it's a 2-to-1. I'll say why. I'll summarize what the discussion was, and basically, so the public, whoever reads the minutes, knows why did that one particular commissioner vote no.
Okay. I mean, but we did handle this back in 19. That's what I just wanted to bring up, was I knew we had already dealt with this. So,
right.
Commissioner Boyce?
Yes, and Ms. Smelzer's concept of looking elsewhere, something that's simple, and you couldn't argue that it was imbalanced or not neutral. So I think that might be something to really pursue, which takes less responsibility from him, and I think probably less stress. I would not want to do that job with 3 different commissioners. Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on to D. Thank you, JJ. Moving on to D, revising a job description and developing related programs. Ms. Schmelzer.
Yes, so in the Economic Development Department, we have an Economic Development Assistant, and she's being pulled in many, many directions, and it's hard to get the work done. She's doing the TLT program, the business licensing program. Commissioners sometimes ask her to do stuff. So we look at what her workload is, we look at who's paying her salary, and we agreed when we did this position that we would take a look at it in a year. So I'm just asking the board to look at it and perhaps make some changes to it. So this position right now does the transient lodging tax collection. And we do that because the state does not collect it, but the state is looking at collecting it. So they've been discussing for the last 9 months or so about having a firm actually collect it. And it would actually be advantageous to us to take advantage of that, because I think more people, if they know the state is collecting it, they're willing to pay it, because then they get in trouble with the IRS versus, just the county. It's not available to us yet, but it should be very shortly. We do have to pay for that service. We can use the TLT monies for that. By taking advantage of that service, we can free up that employee's time to get other things done. And also to perhaps look at something that we haven't done in the past, and that is to take more advantage of the opportunities for film in the county. We just had a situation where I think it was Pixar. I'm not going to say the name of the film. They wanted to do a film here, and we had no one that could coordinate with them or work with them. Other counties have found that they have film programs, they have fees to film in their county, and it has actually brought in more revenue and more tourism as a result of that. So with this, we're looking at saying, let's take that transit lodging tax collection part out of this job and give that to a contract. This position is also supposed to be updating our website, and there has not been the time to do that. So this looks at saying, let's take some of those transit lodging tax dollars and hire a professional to market us through social media instead of having staff which just doesn't have the time to do it. This position would also then say if the commissioners want to use her time, they should be paying into her salary instead of having the transit lodging tax dollars or the business licenses paying for commissioners to use her time. And then it also says that if we do want to advance a film program here, that this person would be dedicated to that, as well as still continuing to do some economic development assistant duties.
Excuse me, are you on number 5 now, or?
We're on 7D.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going down your list.
Oh, I was
number
not.
3.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't reading the. I wasn't reading
okay.
down the
All
list.
right.
But to look at the list, so that's in the packet. There's also this thing where we have these PEG dollars, and we're supposed to be using that for public education and government, and we so far pretty much just use it on recording our meetings. We should be tapping into those dollars. This position can help advance using those dollars and getting more people engaged in perhaps the youth, for example, doing film that can then be put on the PEG channel. There's a whole list here, and I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm trusting that the board has actually read it. But what I am saying is the way the job description is written, along with all the ways people are pulling it, it's not working. She's not able to accomplish everything. I think it's best now that our TLT dollars are up. They're up higher than we expected. They're supposed to be used on tourism promotion. Let's take some of those dollars and collect the TLT, which frees up a significant portion of this person's time. Let's take those TLT dollars and have them professionally market us on social media, because right now we're just not able to do it. We just don't have the time. And then the big thing is, if the commissioners want to use her to help with PowerPoints, films, etc., then the commissioner's budget should be paying a portion of that salary as well.
I have two questions on the state doing it. What's their fees? Do we have a fee schedule from them?
They do not have it yet. They're still working on that contract. If I remember, Miranda, do you remember the last time? I think it was about $5,000 a year or something. Can you comment on that?
Miranda Plagge, Economic Development Assistant. It is right now they had said that it's about 5,000, that they were still trying to finalize it, hopefully by January, but that was still sort of in flux as well.
Has the state given you any, well, put it this way, how do we know the state will pay us? Promptly.
Promptly.
That's a good question.
They don't even send the money that the federal government gave to us several months ago down here for us to use. So for us to plan a budget on transient lodging tax funds,
right.
Knowing that they could find a good excuse to hold it for 3 months or 6 months or a year is very concerning to me. That would be one of my big holdbacks. So can we maybe look for some clarification on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's a program that they've actually been working on for the entire year, so it's something I'm assuming that they've been sort of vetting the entire time. So I'll look into it and make sure that, upon their receiving of those checks, we would actually get that payment promptly as well.
Yeah. Or at least give us a timeline that's going to be, within 90 days we guarantee payment or something like that. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you again. I have a couple questions. Of course, when it comes to the commissioners, I've had you on 3 different projects, and I have a 4th one on our sonar base study, but I've been sensitive to your time and the demand on your time. On the CARES relief funding video we did was 5 minutes, and 6 hours I think you spent, correct me if I'm wrong. That's a lot, but it's not in the sense of what you're able to produce on a 5-minute program, because you're fast and talented and quite qualified. Then you helped me with the Bach office reorganization and got me kind of going on my own, which was also very helpful. So I agree that if the commissioners, and then there was one 1-minute program I think you did for me, which was in itself still no small thing. So if the commissioners out of their budget need to add to that, my first hunch is, that's probably a good thing. As far as the state, if I may, it depends. We'll know a lot more in the next 30 days, even 2 months, if we might want to possibly pursue that option. PEG dollars, I think, speaks for themselves, or speaks for itself, excuse me. I think this is well done. I mean, this is some good outline of where we are and trying to improve on clarity in your job, and I think that's a good thing. At one point in time, also diverting just a little bit here, you and Eric Feliciano were going to go ahead and give us a presentation at some point on what you're dealing with in the IT room and trying to overcome some old equipment, etc. I think, Mr. Chair, we're going to have a new board in January. We could take this month, maybe even have a workshop on our December 16th meeting, discuss this some more, see if there's any updates that would be beneficial to trying to figure out what direction we should go. That would be my recommendation right now. The state of Georgia is basically as I understand, light years ahead of the rest of the states as far as film promotion and preparation. I have a little bit of a concern if we have too heavy of a permit system or a permit ordinance for film companies coming to Curry County. I mean, nobody has any better scenery or diverse geography than what we have. It took a guy up to Lobster Creek, I don't know, a couple Sundays ago, and he was looking for the right waterfall. And said, we're going to have to get you in a boat and go a lot further upstream than Lobster Creek. But, to have a professional person that would be that contact, I would agree with that, too. I mean, nothing wrong with the commissioner doing his or her job, but somebody that's really tuned in. I mean, I've done a lot of public things and helped film movies and all that, but that doesn't, for years, but that doesn't really qualify me that with what we have to offer here and how we can put that into a really nice package. And so I hope that's all making sense. Thank you. Thanks again, Ms. Plagge.
Well, I think let's play the workshop by year. If we come up with some new information, that'll be helpful. That's fine. If not, maybe the first workshop in January or the first meeting in January. Hopefully by then, that's 30 days, we'll have a better direction from the state and we'll have answers to some of those questions. But I agree a workshop might be fruitful if you have new information. If we don't, then perhaps the first workshop in January might be a better way to go.
Okay.
Council?
Thanks. I'm nearly positive PEG cannot be spent on salary. I think PEG's limited to capital.
That's equipment.
Yeah, so that's we actually looked into that a long time ago, but I can dust that off and bring it back to the board. So that I don't want to put a hole in this. And then the only other question I had about this is, the promo committee, Travel Curry Coast, but Main Street's a private organization, and it says that Plagge is dedicating time to Gold Beach Main Street, which is just a local nonprofit. And I don't know that we have an agreement for that, but also if the proposal is to have the board pay for the time Plagge puts in for the board, why are we getting money from Main Street for the work we're doing for Main Street? I'm trying to figure out why we're dedicating county staff to a local nonprofit.
I can comment on that. It's economic development. It's part of the overall economic development program that we partner with local agencies to promote and enhance economic development. So we work with chambers of commerce that are nonprofit organizations. We work with Main Street groups. We work with other groups. If it ends up retaining businesses or attracting people or bringing jobs or supporting jobs, we do our role. We don't just turn our back on them and say, nope, sorry.
What is our role?
Our role right now is we coordinate one of the roles with the Main Street program.
I mean, is it written down anywhere? Do we have an agreement?
We do not have we don't have an agreement with the chambers either. It's just part of our economic development program, and that's what counties do as part of their economic development program.
Yeah, I know what counties do. Sure we do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Hey, Ms. Plagge, one thing real quick. The 11 points have been identified here that we've been looking at. In the next month or so, give or take, will you have time to kind of pursue some of these 11 points and maybe present at the workshop?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I really definitely think the film permitting would help, increase some of the economic development that we were talking about.
So we'll have a good basis.
I'll have a report for that.
Okay. That report would be very helpful on a workshop. Thank you again.
E, discuss staffing and community development. Mr. Melzer?
Okay, so one of the issues we're having is, we redid our community development department. We got some great leadership in there. We've kind of gained the public trust in there. And as a result, we're getting a lot of permits. We're getting a lot of activity down there. And they can't keep up with the existing staff. We did take a person and create her as a community development assistant, which was supposed to be helping with planning, building, surveying, and code enforcement. But what has happened is she's finding almost her entire time is spent on the code enforcement program, which means she's not able to help with the planning or the building services, building safety program. So they're having a hard time keeping up. So they don't think they need a full-time person, but they need a part-time person is what they're looking at doing. So what this would do is, the board hasn't made a decision on a community development director position. It's something they said they would discuss next year. Even if they do that, it'd be a lower cost than what they're paying me, basically. But right now, those departments are paying a portion of my salary. So the proposal would be to take that contribution from my salary and go towards this part-time position. And then building safety also knows from the added revenue that they're bringing in, they're able to pay the remainder. They have enough money to support that position. So they're looking to create that part-time position. Now, when you do that, you have to have room for them. So the idea is to take that community development assistant and move her completely over to code enforcement, and she would work solely for them. And then we do have it set up that the programs they're running would pay her salary or part of her salary.
Right.
This first year it might be tight because, as you know, we're behind on the dog licensing program. But as things get going, we shouldn't have any issue covering the salaries. So this is basically asking the board's approval to proceed with kind of reorganizing how these positions are paid, and then actually putting together a job description for a part-time position and bringing that back to the board for approval so that we can then advertise for it.
Can we also see a line item for budget issues on that as well?
We're not going to have a budget issue on it.
Okay.
Because we do have, they are seeing more revenue. Building safety right now has the revenue for the program.
So you're fine with that? Okay. I'd say we move for Commissioner. Go ahead.
This looks pretty complicated, and it almost appears that we're looking for 3 separate new employees. But I may not be following or tracking well enough. But I thought I just heard you say, Director Smelzer, that we're looking for 1 part-time employee as soon as possible now.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
So what it does is we add a part-time position. We take the community development assistant and she becomes an admin assistant for code enforcement. And then it looks complicated because in the budget, what we do is we indicate how positions are funded, what percentage is paid out of planning, what percentage is paid out of building. What this does is it kind of reorganizes those percentages, who is paying what. So I just want to be very transparent and show how they're being funded right now and how things would change.
When I said complicated, by the way, that wasn't meant as a criticism. I think I'm following okay. But it does look to me like all of a sudden, maybe before the first of the year, a good case scenario, maybe not best, but we'll have 3 full-time employees in code enforcement.
Yes, and right now, Barbara is actually working full-time in code enforcement. She's doing her surveying work, but so she's what I would say 85% code enforcement right now.
Okay.
So she just, instead of having her divided between all these other ones, she just go where she's actually working.
Okay, and you're thinking the critter licenses will at least fund 1 person? Did I hear you on that correct? Close.
It will, once we get it up and going, it'll more than fund 1 position.
Okay, then, Mr. Chair, I'm in favor of trying to get that, again, if I understand correctly, the halftime person, which will primarily, if not his full-time, would be, halftime, but all would be designated, designed for code enforcement, correct?
No. So the halftime person would do planning and building safety and some surveying work.
Okay.
And then Barbara would be reclassed to an administrative assistant solely in code enforcement. I shouldn't say solely, she'd still be doing some surveying work.
But we're still only talking about 1 halftime person.
1 halftime person is all
Gotcha.
that's added.
Okay, I can support that, and then when the new board convenes, I think there, at some point we'll probably have some adjustments to make as we move into 2021. I believe. Okay.
So what I would do, if the board's okay with it, I would come back at the next meeting under consent with the proper orders that we need. Because they are having a hard time keeping up, we don't want to wait on it. We do want to get going on it.
So can we make that decision, excuse me, Mr. Chair, can we make that decision today to
We
advertise for that?
We can, but I'll still come back with orders. So just
We
to
can
formalize
advertise
We can.
for that position?
If the board's in agreement with that.
Okay.
All right.
I move that we approve the half-time position for building and planning.
Code enforcement.
code enforcement, she's automatically going to be
But-
where she is.
But she would go from community development assistant to admin assistant.
Okay, so I make that motion.
I have a second.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion?
I'll still come back with orders, though, just to
Yes.
verify. all
That'll
this.
be on the 16th, and that'll just be under consent agenda then.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that any kind of demotion or downgrade or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Roll, please.
Mr. Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash,
Aye.
motion carried unanimously.
All right, next we are going to accept a modeling policy for notification of employees when COVID-19 occurs. Ms. Schmelzer.
So this is really Brad. Brad did this while I was on vacation, but at the last meeting, we talked about taking that, OSHA told us to get that model policy in place. And so the board reviewed the model and directed staff to come back with, make it tailored specific to Curry County. So that's what this is right here. It's basically a temporary policy that explains to employees what to do if they are infected with COVID-19, the notification process that follows, etc. It's basically word for word what the model policy says, just inserting Curry County in it.
So I move that we adopt the model policy for notification of employees when COVID-19 occurs.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash,
Aye.
motion carried unanimously.
Next is creating a housing committee. And Ms. Madison, if you'd like to step up here as well, I'd like to maybe, in case you're asked questions on some things. You know, we've talked about having a housing committee. We've talked about, you know, how we would do with all the issues that the county's facing now with housing. And we've had All Care funded a task force, I think it was, at one point. And I think we're at the point now that we should, because of the changing features all the time in housing, and with all of the the homeless issues, especially with this COVID going on, I'd like to talk with the board and get the board's thoughts on a housing authority. We did declare a state of emergency on housing, so I think it's in our best interest to move this along further and decide, are we going to have ask for another task force? Are we going to have a housing authority? Are we going to appoint to that? And if we do, how that would look.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Just real quick, just a clarification. It would be a committee. We wouldn't do an actual authority, but it would be a committee is what was in the packet. Can I just make a comment on that? Some comments from Mary Rowe before we get too far?
From Mary Rowe, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
So just real quick, there was an email attached to the actual draft ordinance. Just to make it very clear that that was not, when Commissioner Pash asked me to put together the ordinance, that was not part of it. So so if you're going to adopt something, just so you know, you're not adopting that email. And if you do adopt it, it would be contingent on getting an article and division assigned to it, because has not been assigned yet. But anyway, I just want to make some Mary Rowe had contacted me, and she had some comments about the committee. She's been very
diligent.
She's very involved in it. She's very interested. She really thinks this is something that needs to happen. But she did have some really good comments. Just some minor edits that I just want to get out on the record that I think that we should put in here if we're going to adopt this. The way it's written right now, it says a senior citizen, and she's saying we should specify senior citizen age 65 and over, rather than just leave it open. And then I also had a resident representing the disabled community, and she did clarify that the legal term for that would be a person who experiences a disability. So that would just be minor changes, doesn't change the content. I do have copies of her recommendations on here. You'll see what was crossed out and what was added. Again, just very minor, but I do want to share those comments with you before we get too far.
So
So
this is an ordinance, and this is declared as an emergency, and under the state law, the board can adopt an ordinance. Usually you have 2 readings to adopt an ordinance, but if you declare an emergency, you can adopt an ordinance on the first reading. So if you wanted to, you could adopt this ordinance today through the emergency declaration.
Okay.
And we'll put the chapter and the code on there.
Thank you, Council.
Comments, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Sorry. This has been something we've been all worried about for a long time. We had a workshop the other day on the 18th with the Tara Johnson and Jen Schaefer from Coos County. And of course Beth Barker Hidalgo, Jen Schaefer and her and I come up with the partners list, and this is probably not, here's why I'm going this way for just a second, bear with me. Presumable partners, again, not a conclusive list, but Curry County Housing Authority, we have, I don't know if you're aware, hang on, forgive me. Do we have the mouse up there? Thank you. Are we? No, not that one. Is it this one? I was going to practice. No, that's yours, isn't it, Summer? Okay, I'm 0 for 2. I hope the screen will come up on this. No. 1 of 2. No. I don't think it's on here. It was a link, JJ, for the Curry housing plan for 2018. We don't have to refer to it. It's 40-some pages. Very well done. But it would give this committee or task force, I'm not sure if we want to go task force or committee or what would be the proper term, and as Ms. Melzer said, what would the authority be? But I like the idea. I think maybe we're overdue. Maybe this is something that can produce results and give us some momentum. But the partners, Ms. Madison, I think you helped on this as well. Coos Curry Housing Authority, that's run by Marka Turner. We have a couple good representatives from Curry County on that board. Curry County Housing Emergency Declaration that we did March 2019. NeighborWorks Umpqua, that's where our housing coordinator shared with Coos County comes from. And then we had a good discussion, oh gosh, this is Monday at 2 o'clock. Curry Community Health, I don't think we want to leave those folks out, certainly. Oregon Coast Community Action, St. Timothy's Church, other churches, Curry Homeless Coalition, Department of Human Services, Self-Sufficient Aging People with Disabilities, Rogue Retreat. That's a model for, and I know Chad, I've known him for years in Medford. His program is really getting a lot of attention around the entire state. And that's where the law enforcement comes in. They have been, as another potential or presumable partner, All Care Health, Advanced Health, certainly the cities. It's an opportunity for us to pull the cities in together. The reason I bring all that up is if it helps us determine, and I don't want to slow the process down and not vote today, certainly, but I just want to have a little discussion. And after what we learned last meeting, what we've all learned in our 4 years, 2 years, whatever, I think your point in your presentation, Chair Pash, basically underlines what we know is obvious but important to keep stating. We're making a little progress in workforce housing, but not much, and certainly not on the homeless capacity. Obviously, the communities have a concern. If we try and prepare for what should be a very cold winter, are we going to be able to help these people? And is it just going to make other people come here from outside that are not Curry County citizens? Honestly, I'm not too worried about that right now. I'd like to get some kind of direction and momentum. And if this committee can help facilitate that, to take care, help these people, I think we're on the right track. It's going to be a lot of hard work. It's going to be a lot of responsibility. That's all. Thanks for the time, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gold?
I just have a couple of comments. I looked at that study from 2018 and their goals, and as far as I can see, their goals are not being met. Curry County has not been the recipient of a whole lot. And if this committee were formed, I would think they would be more focused on Curry County and be able to give recommendations to the committee that is now in place that has all the counties involved. So I think it would be a good thing, and possibly this committee would be able to help in getting some grants specific to Curry County.
Ms. Madsen?
So I just wanted to mention I appreciate the groundwork that Commissioner Boyce has invested in identifying partners that might consider serving on the committee. The first thing that I identify is that it's really rich in 501c3s, nonprofits, and social services. And I do believe that those are great partners to have. The part that's missing is the part where we are working with the DLCD and with our...
Do you mind saying that again, please?
Our Department of Land Conservation.
Thank you. Yes.
Development and the Planning Department, and really building that foundation and infrastructure before we need a contractors board, right? And so that's kind of the blessing of the business licensing too, is that we've been able to pull all those together, work with planning and say, this is our goal. How do we make sure everybody's licensed, and then builds credibility with the community and looking for a builder. It's things like that that we really need, in my opinion, to focus on before those things need to be in place, whether or not we're building a homeless shelter, workforce housing, aging and disabilities access. That foundation really needs to be secure, and we really do need to solidify the collaborations outside of the existing task force that is mainly nonprofit and social services.
Okay.
And I must say, not to discount social services, because I agree with Councilor Huddle. We do have a lot of committees and advisory boards. If we go back and dissect and revisit the purpose of those boards and what's not mandated, we will see that, like with the suicide and things like that, that there really are social services in those, and maybe we reevaluate how our committees are organized.
Commissioner Boyce?
Yeah, there is some apprehension that there would be another committee that couldn't get on track. Is that what I hear you saying? That's a little bit widespread out there, and not without, it's like Commissioner Gold just mentioned, the housing plan. You know, what's happened with that in the last 3 years? It's still very valuable information, but we need to put that into action somehow.
So I have a timeline, and if you review that on the ED website, you'll see there's been a lot of investment in time, but there's not been an official charge outside of the ad hoc task force for housing. And one of the things that I found the necessity for this maybe a year or so ago was I was applying for a grant for the housing task force. And because they were not officially under a nonprofit or a government agency, when I got to page 5 of the application for the grant, it was deemed we weren't eligible, and it wasn't something I could go through. You know, usually when you apply for a grant, you look at what's required before you start applying. That I did not have that ability, so I invested a good amount of time into this grant that in the end we weren't eligible for. This would make us a little more official in eligibility.
Okay. Mr. Barnes?
David Barnes. Like Commissioner Gold just said, like so many other things, you know, you have a plan already. There's all kinds of housing and homeless organizations in this county who work on things. This is just another group of people who's going to come together and sit down and talk a lot and write up another plan. They're like the community wildlife or wildfire plan and that housing plan and everything else. You've talked about this enough. The next thing that needs to happen is somebody needs to identify a piece of property to put something on and to get a builder to build it. You know, there's been plenty of talk. You know what has to be done. Why talk about it more? If you don't have a piece of property and you don't have a builder to come in and build on it, then talk isn't going to do you much good. I look at this whole thing differently than you do. I guess not everybody gets to live wherever they want to. It's a matter of the opportunity that's available in certain areas. And I don't really think that, I question in my mind whether Curry County is having a homeless problem or a housing problem, or whether we have a population problem. And we just have too many people here for the resources that are available to us, to the people in the county. And, you know, nobody looks at it that way, and I really think that that's something that should happen. You know, there's a limited number of jobs here. There's a limited number of houses here. When those jobs are filled, when those houses are filled, there's not anything left for new people or the next person who comes along. And, you know, like I said, you already know what has to be done. I don't see any point talking about it anymore. You know, do it or get off the pot, and, you know, find a property, build something on it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyce?
We did that meeting I referenced. Did you want to go?
Go ahead.
I can
Commissioner Boyce, go ahead.
Okay, so we have, no worries. Last Friday, that meeting I referenced was with NeighborWorks Umpqua, Curry County Homeless Group. There was 5 or 6 people there. I was going to bring this up at Commissioner comments, but it's called the Turnkey Project, where there's $65 million in Oregon available, $35 million for fire displaced people, and then $30 million that's available for each of the counties to potentially buy 18 motels, increasing the housing in the state of Oregon by 1,000 units. Okay, that's a pretty complicated thing. We have 1 in Gold Beach. There's 1, possibly 2 in Brookings. And, you know, the cities, understandably, aren't really in favor of Into the Beachcomber, if I may add, or just bring it right out in front. That's right in the middle of our hotel, beachfront, tourism, visitor promotion attraction. And so that doesn't seem to be a good option, not in my view. But that money is there. How would it be managed? How would the county deal with it? So to Mr. Barnes' point, part of our meeting was to identify properties, and Beth Barker-Hidalgo has done a tremendous amount of work on the Ophir School, which is 5 acres, has a gymnasium there. You know, the selling price would probably be around $400,000. You have the Pistol River School, those 2 pieces of property equidistant between the north and southern county borders. So there is some work, there is some progress being done. I agree that we need to find a property. Maybe this committee could take up some of this extra work that some of us are doing, in particular, well, way besides me, more work than I'm doing, but it is an important issue. So I would support this committee. Again, the only thing I'm concerned about, I'll mention again, is just how we structure it, what the timeline is, and yes, as I said earlier, is there an issue that it's not going to get any work done? There's been so much groundwork that's been laid that is available, and collectively we could put together and maybe bring some good results. Thank you for the time.
Mr. Melzer?
Yeah, so about a year ago, well, it was over a year ago, I actually did give a list of properties that the county has that could be used for a housing project, and that was given to that task force, and nothing happened with it.
Which task force?
The ad hoc one that has been meeting with. I went to the meeting at the city. It was in the library, so I'm not sure. I think it's the one with the Curry Homeless Coalition. I remember Tammy Kaufman was there. Jordan White was there. I think United Way was there. But
I'm sorry. Was that a separate list from the Real Property Task Force, or was it the same list?
It's a separate list. It was a list of the available properties we have now, zoned residential, that they could be using.
Thank you.
And nothing happened with it. You know, I think it's, and with a housing coordinator, we could say, we have a housing coordinator now, just go develop something. In my mind, that's not good government. In my mind, you should have people that are directly impacted by the housing issues that help decide, you know, maybe we have a piece of property A, but that may not be the best piece of property for workforce housing or homeless housing. I mean, there has to be, I think, public input on that process to decide what are we going to tackle first, where is this best suited, and how are we going to do it. And I do think by having, you know, right now, housing is not assigned to any of our staff people right now. It doesn't, that's just the way, we haven't had the time, and their job descriptions haven't been laid out that way. with this committee, you're actually assigning a employee to it, and it's the employee that's been most involved in it, to make sure that something does keep moving, something does keep happening. That employee, in my mind, in conversations I've had with her, is a little frustrated that nothing has been happening. So I do think that having a committee where you have people directly impacted by the housing crisis, partner with agencies, and you have staff there to actually facilitate it and make it happen, is really the only thing I can think of to help move this along, because we've had this emergency declaration for over a year now, and literally nothing has happened.
Except we got a coordinator, and that
We
took
did get a
forever.
coordinator. We
That
did.
took forever.
We did. That's true.
So do we have a motion?
I move that we approve this committee with the corrections that were made.
Can we, Mr. Chair, for a second?
Sure.
Can we talk about those changes, or just briefly inventory them so we know where we're going here? And we're apparently in agreement it needs to be a Curry County Housing Committee. Is that the official title?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe this was just sent out with those changes on it.
Yes, thank you. Is there anything in addition to page 1? There's only 3 pages here.
2 pages.
2 pages, excuse me. Okay, I will, do we need to add to that motion, excuse me, a county representative responsibility and who that might be? Maybe not who, but a little clarification there, please.
Sure, I can address that. So the way it's written is, it says there is a secretary, and it does say that the secretary is, let me just find it in here.
I think it says the housing coordinator.
No,
That would be the best way to go. We'll get some, we'll get his time.
it actually has to be a county employee.
Well,
We have a
he's
policy.
representing the county, and he's also representing, his name is Brian Sheldon Kelby, and he's also representing Coos County. So that would generate a little more time for him to come to Curry County. And I have no reluctance that he wouldn't be fully qualified. If you want somebody to work with him specifically representing the county, I think that would be that combination to me would be the best path.
And, you know, I think that what we can do is, I'm sorry, it does not specify in here, so it is something that I think that person would apply for. But we do have a county policy out there, and I think, and it was put together in, I think it was 2016, that says for every committee that the county has, there has to be a staff person assigned to it, and they serve basically in the role of secretary to make sure that minutes are actually recorded. Because what we had, and we still have going on,
You gotta have a way to report.
yeah, the board doesn't know what's going on in these committees, and that was a way to overcome that and to address that problem.
If you got somebody that's a secretary that works with the county or for the county, they can report to us on what's going on that committee.
I have no issues with that. I just think the position and responsibility, number one, and authority would be the housing coordinator. He'd still probably be coming down here, Brian, once a month. And if he comes down and all he is going to listen in instead of taking the lead, which I think would be real important, I think we need to make that clarification there.
It does say that he would be a member of the committee court.
But I want him to take the responsibility and dive right in. That's what he's been hired for, and that's what we worked very hard to get that grant for.
We hope all committee members dive right in and take
Well,
Hopefully they vote
this
him
guy
the
is so
chair.
qualified, and he's a leader, and some of our county employees are not leaders. It's just, this is his responsibility, and I'm going to be pretty hard line on that because we need him down here.
And the county staff person is just the secretary court.
Okay.
They wouldn't be taking the lead anyway.
That's perfect. Thank you.
We have a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Could I ask one
I'm sorry.
clarification question? So, for instance, you know, we have JJ staff us, and I just wanted to clarify the position of the secretary. It says the secretary is a county employee assigned to serve as secretary and facilitate meetings, but then on the last sentence on the second page of the first paragraph, talking about the committee, it says the secretary shall be a member, but shall not be subject to term limitations. And I think it would be like saying JJ's a member of, or any of us staff is a member of the board. I think that's inconsistent with the secretary, taking minutes and serving the committee and facilitate meetings versus being a member. So I think you could probably strike that last sentence of because they would then be voting and things like that, and you'd have county staff voting on a county committee, and I think that's a little interesting. So you could probably, I don't think you need that last sentence of paragraph 1 of what the committee is.
So the reason why that was written that way is we do have other committees where the staff member serves as secretary, but they're also a voting member. So it was just being consistent with some of the other ones. Board, of course, can do what they want, but it's all in that. So the paragraph is talking about who the memberships are. And it's saying, it's the housing coordinator, it's the veteran, it's the secretary, basically saying the secretary gets to vote. But if the board doesn't want the secretary to vote, we can just change that.
Most boards I serve on, the secretary votes.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right.
I think it's a good catch, but I'm okay with that.
Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right,
Real quickly, Commissioner, because this is an emergency, we'll have JJ advertise it right away and see what we can have for you to look at on December 16th already. That's a real quick turnaround, but we'll see what we get in that time.
Thank you. Next we have H, letter to the governor. Commissioner Gold.
Okay, let me pass this out so everybody has a copy of it, and then I'll just read it for the record. Get my fingers. Okay, originally we were going to sign on with some other counties, and that never happened. So we are coming up with this letter on our own. So this is dated December 2nd, 2020, to Governor Brown. Please find this letter of concern on behalf of Curry County. First and foremost, we are Oregonians. We are neighbors, friends, family members. We have been called to serve and voted into office by our constituency. It is in all of these roles that we write to share our grave concerns with your extension of your latest executive order, the temporary freeze. We recognize the threat that COVID-19 poses to our community and support data-driven decisions to limit the spread of this disease. But we do not support the mandate to close gyms, churches, and restaurants, as it is not supported by historical data and will only address a small fraction of Oregon's COVID cases at the cost of thousands of jobs and hundreds of businesses. Combined cases that can be traced back to churches, restaurants, and gyms make up less than 1% of all the recorded COVID cases in Oregon. Quite simply, there is no actual evidence that restaurants, gyms, or churches are driving COVID in our community. In fact, because of the adherence to mask wearing and social distancing, these establishments have been some of the safest in the state. The closure of these establishments ensures more jobs are lost and Oregonians are left only to rely on broken unemployment system. Our neighbors and friends won't be able to pay their mortgages, pay their rent, or buy Christmas presents for their children because of this decision. This is wrong. Furthermore, we are concerned with the violation of our privacy as the state police and local law enforcement agencies are being ordered to investigate and criminally charge Oregonians based on the number of people they invite into their homes. Legality questions aside, with depression and anxiety levels at an all-time high, creating new crime to visit your family only hinders these struggling with their mental health. Data shows us that COVID has been spreading at private social gatherings, and we call on our fellow citizens to be careful and social distance when gathering over the holidays. But we cannot and will not support any attempt by any police agency to violate the sacred space of any Oregonian's home. We urge you to stop this mandate that will hinder the working people, families, and their loved ones, the well-being of Oregonians, and the state of our economy and communities. Thank you for taking this into consideration as we all work to keep Oregon safe. So I make a motion that we accept this letter and send it on.
Second. Further discussion?
May I?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Discussion,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Do we include in that motion just District 4, the other 5 counties, which we originally had intended to do? I just offer that for consideration.
I don't think we should speak for anyone other than
No,
our-
just give them a chance to sign on.
send this to them?
Yes.
I wouldn't mind CCing them, sure.
Do you want to add that to the motion?
And also we'll CC this letter to the other
Southwest
counties in
Oregon?
District 4.
Okay. Second, Mr. Chair.
I would like to say that, you know, I was in conversation with the governor a week or so ago and voiced this exact concern to her. In addition to sending us the money that is owed this county from the CARES Act, she did address the CARES Act money, but would not comment on this at all.
Okay.
So I have a speaker's slip from Mr. Colon. A little late, but it's okay.
Jim Colon, Curry County Assessor. I don't think this letter had been in the agenda packet, so I wasn't aware of anything about it until I heard it read. And you know, my concern with the letter is, and you know, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and do the letter, but I don't think Curry County's actions have reflected their words in as much as you closed down county departments for the 2-week freeze, and probably will continue to if the freeze continues. So to me, the letter sounds a little bit like a holier than thou attitude.
Okay.
That Curry County's actions just didn't reflect.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I want to comment.
Go ahead.
Please. You know, last Wednesday when we decided we're going to have a 2-week shutdown, there was confusion about what came from Alice Campbell's office that Friday late, and then the 2 weeks preceding to basically today. You know, I asked if the board could just have the department heads come back Wednesday, which would have been 1 week, last Wednesday, and just give us a report. You know, there are part of our taxpayers out there that are saying, great, county employees, those departments that aren't there, they get a 2-week paid vacation. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that, but you try and convince people that are hurting out there that that isn't going on. And yesterday is a perfect example. The phones did not stop ringing, and nobody answered them. And I want this board to know that reflects poorly on me, because I asked last Wednesday if we could bring everybody back here and just say, do we need to continue this for a second full week? So, no, I didn't get a support on that. So we've had 2 weeks where part of our county's been shut down, and I think it's, I agree with Mr. Colon. I like the letter. I think it's extremely well written, what I heard Commissioner Gold read. But commissioners aren't doing their job. That's what some people are saying. And I tried to at least just hold it to a week. And we should have never had a shutdown anyway, for the most part. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Moving on to 7I, which is 6H from the consent agenda. Commissioner Boyce.
Oh, I gotta find it here, excuse me.
Custodian.
Yes, the only question I had on that was, that will be funded by CARES Relief Act, relief funds, presumably, as long as they're still there.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is part-time, So does that make our facility maintenance 4.5 full-time people now?
It is, well, we have the facilities maintenance director. We have Tad Ringulet, we have Brandy, and then we have Henny, who is half-time. So we have 3.5 right now, so it would be a total of 4 full.
Okay, that's fine with
4
me.
full-time equivalents.
Okay.
Okay.
And that last one that we're going to hire here is potentially temporary.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so do I have a motion to accept 6H on the consent agenda to approve that?
I so move.
Second?
Yes. Second.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Moving on to Director's Report, Ms. Schmelzer.
Okay, both Brad and I do have something to report, so I'll start with mine. First of all, I want to talk about the revenues. So we had a sheriff's auction yesterday. It's the first one we've had in a couple of years. And we actually auctioned, we offered 4 properties. 3 of them sold, so we have to talk about what we're going to do with the 4th one. But the 3 that sold all went for the minimum bid. So what we did was we sold 1 property in Hunter Creek, which brought us $50,000 towards rebuilding the cabins at Lobster Creek. We had one on Silver Butte Road for $38,000, which goes towards improvements at Boyce Cope County Park. We had $18,000 for one on Cemetery Loop Road in Port Orford, which by court order goes to the Sheriff's Department. And then we had another one in Hunter Creek, which didn't sell. So what the board did the last time a property didn't sell is they worked through a realtor to actually sell the property. We did have 2 people after the auction talk to us about that property. We have 2 people interested in it. So I think putting it through a realtor would be wise. We do have some interest in there. We don't have a realtor on retainer or anything, so if we're going to do this, we should probably eventually look at rotating what realtors we work with, or maybe putting it out for an RFP or something. But for now, to get this moving, I would recommend that we use the realtor that we used with the last sale. I don't even know who it is offhand. We'd have to go back and look in the file. But so if the board's okay with that, we would list that property. So
Second, Counsel.
Sure. I think the last property we sold through a realtor, was that the one in Brookings?
no, it was actually in Gold Beach.
Okay.
It was next to the Marcel building.
Okay.
So would the board be okay, just real quick, with us listing that through a realtor, following the same process we did last time?
I'm fine with it.
That's fine.
Court?
Yes.
Okay.
To raise the price, the extra 6%, we have to pay the realtor?
Well, they might take 3, though.
Well, or 3.
So I'll talk to the realtor and we'll come back, so. And then with the transit lodging tax money, I just want to let you know that, so last year, instead of doing a full quarter, we only collected for 3 quarters because the program didn't really become effective until we started collecting October 1st. So it's only 75% of what we should have been collecting for, but we budgeted $235,000, and I just want to let you know we collected $519,000. So we collected double of what we had projected.
Good.
As you know, that helps with the promotions committee, it helps the event center, it helps with the economic development efforts, and it helps the sheriff's department, and it helps the finance department. So that's a real good asset, or glad to see those numbers. For business licenses, we didn't budget anything. That program actually came after, we had done the budget, but we collected $31,500, which goes to offset the salaries that are running that program as well. So that was really good. Thankfully, we have those because lottery is down $45,000. Lottery dollars are how we primarily fund the economic development department. So because we lost that money, we were really stressing how are we going to balance that budget? What are we going to do? But these other revenues do help make up for that. So we're really grateful for that. Building safety department, every month so far, they're higher than expected. They budgeted $390,000 for the whole year for permit revenue. We're not even halfway through, and we're almost to 50% of that level. So, and we're in our slower season. So when when we hit those busy months, we do expect that to be higher than budgeted as well. So that's really good news for us. I just want to talk to you a little bit about public health. As you know, the public health department right now is kind of spread all over. We know they need help. We know we have to get a public health emergency management coordinator in there, possibly looking at some administrative help. We just haven't had time to follow up and fill those vacancies. We also don't have a place to put them. So I talked to Cherie about space needs. I talked to Chet. As you know, the Homeless Coalition, they're going to be vacating that building at the end of December. So what we're going to do is look at putting public health all together in one location, making it easier for the public, making it easier for Cherie to have communication, supervise those people, and put them all in that building. So the carpet in that building is our third newest carpeting, so it just needs a really good scrubbing. We're going to have to do some painting in there and some things. It's going to take a while to get set up for them, but the goal, and hopefully by the time we're ready to actually move in there, we'll have the staff hired that we need to keep that program really running. So, there's been, as you know, there was a tablet from the parks that there's been some brief conversation on, so I just want to give an update on that. The tablet, we looked at the tablet and it was in privacy mode, so we can't tell the history of where they were on that tablet. We were concerned that maybe perhaps our reservation system got breached or something, so we got a hold of the reservation system. What we can tell is whenever someone accessed that reservation system, it was on county equipment. There's only one day that there's a question as to who accessed that data. It's an IP address that we don't recognize, so we're just doing some more looking at that, just so everybody's aware of that. I want to talk to you a little bit about evaluations. So, as you know, this summer we talked about before employees get the raise, they have to go through an evaluation process by their supervisor. We didn't talk about people that don't have a direct supervisor and instead answer to the board. Specifically, Director of Operations, the council position is another one. We need to know how to proceed with that. It's really important we talk about this in, hopefully today, so we can bring something back on the 16th, because our new Director of Operations, we did an order that said at 3 months' time, passing successful completion, that then he gets his increase in salary. So we need to do his evaluation. So, you know, like I said, I think the board needs to discuss how are you going to do these evaluations. I do want to schedule something for the 16th in executive session to at least do Brad's, so we can stay in line with what we agreed to do for him. So if the board's okay, I'll schedule his evaluation at least for executive session. Not sure how we're going to do it, but maybe we can talk about it more in executive session that day, or even today if we want to have a special executive session. So, but
why don't we look at the 16th?
The 16th, okay. And then talking a little bit about COVID. As we know, the freeze was extended. So I think we need to just have a discussion. What does that mean to us? Does that mean that we continue allowing departments to close their office if they want? Does that mean supervisors can continue to let employees work from home if they see fit? Or what does that mean to us? The governor extended the freeze through winter. That's all we know. There's no deadline to that. So I think we should have a little conversation about that, and maybe we can do that under other on number 12, if you're okay with that.
Would that be...
or right now, if you want.
I think now's fine.
I think now's fine.
Okay. So let's talk about that. I do just want to say one thing about the phones ringing. I know in our office we closed it, and Mr. Jesuit is working from home most of the time. Our phones are transferred to his phone, so it may sound like it's ringing. It is going to a voicemail. He's picking it up on his end and calling them right back. So.
Yeah, but when he comes back into the office, why does he have 20 messages? Well, he can tell me. He can tell the group how many messages he has, but like one day he sent me 4 that were a couple days later.
It might be before he got the cell phone that transfers everything to
So
his
this
cell
is a
phone.
recent deal?
I'd say for about a week now. JJ, would you say you got it last week, Wednesday, I think?
I've used the cell phone Monday the 30th and Tuesday the 1st because I took off Friday the 27th.
So he got it last Wednesday, then we had Thanksgiving, he was off on Friday, but since he's been back, he's been using it. And it seemed like it's been working pretty good. I mean, we haven't had issues with it.
I received 11 calls. I answered 11 calls on Monday the 30th. 3 or 4 yesterday.
Okay, but I was completely unaware until that is now a recent development. So thank you.
Yeah, what we were doing in the past is when JJ was gone, we were having Miranda cover for him. But Miranda also does some remote work right now, so we had to come up with a way to make sure we had phone coverage. When I'm there, I try and pick up, but a lot of times I have somebody in my office, so it's just going to JJ's phone, and then he's picking it up right now. But
yeah.
But so anyways, let's talk about that, what we want to do with, because the freeze was extended.
Well, I thought we decided at the last meeting that the department heads would make that decision.
We did for the freeze, and that was until December 2nd, which is today.
Right.
So now we can reinstate that, or do something
I say with the state of the county right now and all the new COVIDs that we have, I think we leave that up to department heads.
Okay.
I don't think it's our job to interfere with what the department heads do.
It's not okay. If we want to serve the people and we want to be here, can we at least have a report from the individual department heads to verify that it's in the best interest of the citizens for their people to stay home? We've not had any, since I think the month of April, we've not had any reports of COVID in our building or the courthouse, maybe the jail, I don't remember for sure now. But are we going to remain open, and are we going to take the lead here and bull forward and try and really serve the public? Are we just going to walk away from the notion that a lot of people have that it's a paid vacation for a lot of people? Boy, that really concerns me. Really concerns me. I don't see the risk of having them come to the office.
Mr. Gold?
Priest.
That bothers me about the paid vacation. I believe a lot of these employees are being very fruitful and getting a lot done. But
And I agree with that. However, if I speak up for the citizens, then I get accused of nobody wants to work for you. It's just nonsense. Okay? We have to pull everybody together. We have to focus on what our responsibilities are and get it done.
Well, that's why we have other department heads know what's best for their department and the citizens, correct?
Okay.
I'm asking a question, do you think?
I appreciate that, and it's not micromanagement to say, here we are, guys. We're the ones that are responsible to make the decisions here. All I'm asking is for a report, individual reports. I think we need to, maybe we'll cover this on the 8th, the management meeting. I mean, basically, there's half the time here, nobody's in the commissioner's office, except for, it's pretty sporadic. So
why don't we at the managers meeting ask the managers for exactly
okay,
that?
we lose another week, sir. We lose another week.
Well, the management meeting is next Tuesday, so Brad could do that. Brad's going to have the meeting. He could do that. I do just want to say the commissioner's office is closed. That's why there is not anyone in there. We've posted that, and that's what happens when we have one admin person in that office. And I will, I don't know if I can legally say it. Hopefully I'm okay with this. For medical reasons, even I don't want that person there. I mean, I think we have to look out on a case-by-case basis. Look at your staff. Look at what they're dealing with. Look at the type of work that can be done. We historically do not get a lot of walk-in traffic in that office. He stays up on the emails. He was emailing me last night at 11 o'clock. He's doing more than 8 hours as far as I'm concerned. We now have the phone situation under control. For the board's office, I feel that we're addressing the public needs, but it's up to each department, and I do think, Brad, that's a good thing to talk about at the management meeting, and report back to the board on the 16th, or maybe even an email, just, you know, telling them they can't reply to all, of course, but letting them know if there's any concerns. Brad did reach out to all the departments to find out which ones were open, which ones were closed, you know, what their situation was. So Brad has been staying on top of that.
Commissioner Boyce?
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'll conclude with this. Anybody that thinks that people are consistently, there are definitely some exceptions, but they're consistently as productive as home as they are in this office, I just do not agree with that. That's not a slam to any one employee. It is simply, why do we even have an office? Why don't we just all work from home? We're not gaining anything, and I think we're losing. Thank you.
Oh, I'd hate to own commercial real estate right now, because I think a lot of the big corporations nationwide have proven that their employees are at least as efficient at home. And I'd hate to have that big nut for that rent or that lease in a lot of these big cities right now, because a lot of these companies aren't going to bring their people back.
Well, and we're seeing national trends where people are working from home more and more. But I think for county government, it's been a little confusing. You know, when the pandemic started, we were told, you know, a lot of these employees were told, work from home, don't come into the office. What are you doing in the office? And now we're saying, come back to the office. I mean, I think everybody just wants that direction from the board right now on what to do. And the freeze is extended. If the board's okay with it, we'll continue with the policy we've been following for the last 2 weeks. We'll just let the departments know it's up to them.
Mr. Gold?
Maybe the department heads could do a report on the productivity of their employees, so that we can rest assured that things are happening.
Why don't we ask Brad to do that at the managers meeting, ask for a report from the managers, or department heads, I'm sorry. All right.
So continue the free, oh, I'm sorry.
That's something we can just pass on to the public that at least gives an indication that we're working towards growing with the whole program. Thank you.
So is the consensus just to continue with that policy right now?
That's
and
my,
let it up
that's
to
my
each
vote, yes.
No, I'm not voting for that, but I do think it's a good idea to direct Staff Ricker to get that report. That's what I've been asking for 2 weeks now. Thank you.
That's all I
Those
had, and then
reports.
Brad had some things too.
Brad?
Okay, so a couple things I've been working on are been looking at a couple different contracts with council and a couple other county employees. First one is that we've been revisiting the current contract with the animal shelter. And this is needed because the county is taking back the oversight and issuance of the animal licensing program. This will, as it's been mentioned earlier in this meeting, is expected to increase revenues through that program. The other contract is that we've been working on is the GIS contract and APO contract with the Lane Council of Governments. There's still a little more work to do on that, but we are working through that. I've also been working with Chet Brewer and Thomas Langford on an update to the security system for the courthouse building. It is extremely outdated, and my understanding is that we're having a very hard time even gaining access to the system. So Chet has been contacting the security system, or I guess the only company out here that is able to do that type of security, and has been working with them on setting things up and getting pricing and that type of thing. The other thing I wanted to give an update on is NeoGov, and just as a reminder, this is a software program that we're implementing to help with recruitment. So the initial training phase has been completed, and we are moving on to setting up the system so that we can actually use it. We are expected to go live sometime next month. I'm hoping early January. That way we can use it and hopefully get some more interest in open positions as they become open.
And that's something else you might speak to your managers about is, if there are people that are considering retirement, to ask them to give us a time frame for that so that we can well plan and have a future employee set up. I know council has mentioned possibly, I'm not asking you to, but you've mentioned possibly making a decision in this February or March of next year. And if that were to occur, I mean, we've got this NeoGov program. I think, you know, the sooner we know those kind of things, that we can get it onto NeoGov and find someone to fill those positions, that would be, you know, a big plus for the county, because it gives us time to find the proper employee.
Agreed.
All right.
That's everything.
Thank you. Commissioner updates. I really don't have any updates right now. I was going to talk about NeoGov a little bit myself, but I think we just covered it. So, Commissioner Boyce, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to refer to the famous laptop. At some point, I'm going to have a lot to say about that, but this is a condition. You know, I'll just read something real quick here on the complaints against the Meekins. Host to follow online reservation system rules and assist guests with reservation needs. I think you've heard me say, if not, I need to emphasize that. If it wasn't for their own computer and their own Wi-Fi system, we wouldn't have had a reservation system. I want you to look at the scratches on this thing. That's what they're in trouble for not using. Whoops, sorry. We'll go this way. This is pictures I took, I think, in August, but this is their computer. They've done an excellent job. I don't know why it's doing the enlargement thing, but the bottom line is they have a very good system, and they've done a good job. I don't think there's any question on their efforts. Oh, this is just one thing that I'll bring this up later. So, talked about the minutes. There's been interest in my recovery plan from January 31st of 2017. These are just the highlighted items. I'm going to revise this. I'm also going to answer to this at some point in time to any progress that's been made on these issues. I think there's 18, and then transcend it into the plan that I'll have by mid-January, maybe sooner, in 2021. And I think it's important to try and show the citizens and the board, as we reconvene a new board in January, what my vision is. Let's see. I think that's all I have for now on that. Looking for my notes here. County finances, the budget. Director Smelser, if I can give you 2 weeks, I really want to know, so I'm officially requesting a recap of where we are on the projections for 21-22 and where we are for the rest of this year. I think you might have made a little headway on that earlier today. I'm just a little nervous on where we are, but if you want to take that 2 weeks to give us an update, that would be really helpful.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Certainly.
So we have our mid-year review in January.
Okay.
So can you wait? I mean, that's usually when we go through the mid-year recap, and we do it with the budget committee. We were just waiting to get the other budget committee appointed before we did that.
Are you gonna call in on that or something, maybe?
I won't be working here at that time.
Okay. All right.
But Brad can do it. Brad and I actually sat down this week, went through what happens in the mid-year review, and the process, and then the budget and the budget calendar and all of that good stuff. So, and I have told him that I'd keep myself available to him if he ever needed my help.
Boy, I'd sure like to have something for the end of the year.
We can do that. Like I said, we do.
Why don't you think about it?
And then we can
Wouldn't
repeat
it be nice
it.
once OpenGov's in, you can just go on your own computer anytime you want to, day or night, and push a button and you've got your budget.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner, we can try and do that for the next meeting. But
Yeah.
if not, it would have to wait for the mid-year review.
I'm not
I have
asked for 10 pages, maybe just a page or two
yeah.
that would tell the citizens, here's where we are, here's what our expectations are for the
Sure.
first quarter of 2021.
Sure.
One more thing. You heard Gordon Clay earlier today talk about the whole suicide, mental health issues, all this going on with COVID. Some different figures that we're aware of. I mean, every time I get a email from Cherie Ward, Administrator Ward, excuse me, my heart stops for a minute. And boy, the biggest one we had so far is 8 in one day. That was about 4 days ago. And so it's growing. I found it important, necessary to correct Mr. Clay on we still only had 2 deaths. And as you pointed out, we all know, Mr. Pash, or Chair Pash, that, they were 2 people in their elderly or older 80s, and so not having any deaths, but yet there is that nervousness that we are approaching a little bit of a concern limit on, not yet, but on the hospitals. We're looking at the governor sent out a report that there's basically 26 of the 36 counties that are on an extreme program right now, and we're on the verge of going on extreme. We're high risk right now. So they're watching close. Administrator Ward is watching close. But, basically the federal government, CDC, said, if you got on an airplane and you come back, assume you have COVID. And in fact, I may not have that correct. I want to apologize to the board there. It was either that or it was if you went over state line when you come home. Assume you have COVID. Basically everywhere in the state, everywhere in the country, there's an outbreak. I think we're all following that pretty closely. The number one thing we can do, though, is social distancing. That is the number one thing. And I'm just encouraging everybody, don't drop your guard. You bet 1 out of 10 times I come out of my office without a mask and don't get very far, because it's just the one of 2 or 3 things that I can specifically focus on, I can do to do my part. And I've seen some improvement in the annex. I really have, and I appreciate that. Anytime we can stay home, stop the spread. Everybody listen. Do your part, please. I know so many people have sacrificed greatly, but we don't know where this thing is going in the next 30 days, 120 days. We really don't know. It spreads so easy, and it is way more deadly than flu. That's my report for the day. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Gold?
I'm just going to kind of piggyback on that. I've seen some statistics about the number of deaths in the United States, and the deaths from like heart disease, cancer, some of the other things that usually claimed high numbers of deaths have gone down. And now it's COVID that's being blamed. And I've also looked at the report from OHA every day, and without exception almost, I would say 98% of the deaths have underlying conditions. So looking at the whole thing, I don't think we can blame COVID totally for the deaths. I think these underlying conditions definitely are contributing. So just my 2 cents. Thanks.
All right. I think with nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.
Are we going into executive session now?
No,
or?
it's canceled.
Oh,
We amended the agenda and removed it.
executive session is canceled? I'm
Commissioner Boyce did ask to make a couple comments at the
Or we
beginning of the
removed
meeting.
it when we removed.
Commissioner Boyce did ask to make a couple of comments at the beginning of the meeting in executive session.
Thank you. Thanks anyway.
And see. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. to the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you.